Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is August the 4th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar and 1443 on the ancient sun calendar and 2022 on the Greco-Roman calendar. All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity. This is a sovereign, living, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American court action. I am sovereign, living justice. Pauline Denise Ritchie in Capitis Diminution Nolo in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. My free, chosen, sovereign appellation is like to jure bay in Capitis Diminution Nolo in red ink, in proprio persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. All Moors are the ancient, original, indigenous, natural, divine ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. And our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original, indigenous, natural, divine, sovereign, ancient empire state for Morocco, the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government, the Moorish American consulate, the Article 3 Universal Moorish American Consular Court. We are Washington District 4, Columbia. Today we are executing the law by our own sovereign capacity, which is the original, indigenous, ancient, natural, divine, Article 3 Living United States District 4, Columbia Bankruptcy Court. And we are the sovereign fiduciaries, secured creditors, executors, trustees, ministers, claimants, and beneficiaries in this ongoing cause for action. We are peace. We are one nation, one state, one empire, and one God. We hereby accept our sovereign ascension and exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, nunc pro tunc. So there's just a couple of things that I want to put on the table. One of them being our 3-day full moon fast coming up on August the 10th, 11th, and 12th. So for those who will be fasting with us during that time period, you can fast however you choose to do so. Just one moment, let me make a couple of adjustments here. And however you choose to fast, some do it sun up to sundown. Others fast doing water only for the whole 3-day period. And then others fast from negative energy. Some fast from meat. Others fast from sugar. So it just depends on what it is that you're wanting to fast from. So it is up to you, however you want to do it. Just one moment. It is up to you. And we do it for a number of reasons. Number one, to unify spiritually. And then even in this natural iteration, we want to unify. So just one moment. Okay. So just a couple of facts that I want to bring forward. The U.S., because some of the things that we've been doing, such as putting the letters out, the resignation letters of the subjects and custodians who were previously occupying our offices. With regard to the signatures, because we've had quite a few asking about the signatures. And I'll say this about that. Number one, if whoever it is, no matter what their name is, and they're a custodian or a subject rather on our land, the subjects on our land, if they have trademarked their name or their signature, that means they took it through the Trademark and Patent Office. Well, the U.S. Trademark and Patent Office is bankrupt. We are the fiduciaries for everything that has ever gone through that office, to include inventions, trademarks, signatures, logos, shapes, colors, letters, information to include scientific information, patents to include land patents, product and commercial patents, and otherwise. So it does not matter whether they trademarked anything or not. We have the authority to use anything as a resource on our land because it's our land. If it's on our land, we can use it. So let's just say that's for those who may have trademarked through the U.S. Trademark and Patent Office under them. But for those who didn't trademark, we can still use it because it's not trademarked. So either way, because we're the fiduciaries, and the thing about our fiduciary status is that every corporation that was doing things on our land is bankrupt. Grocery stores, department stores, those that were previously doing business as government agencies, everyone. No matter where you go on this land, Walmart, Microsoft, Nike, Under Armour, Apple, all are bankrupt. And we are not only the creditors, but we're the fiduciaries. It is our fiduciary duty to govern the bankruptcy and to utilize any of the resources that come from our land and the things that were used to put things on our land, to build things, to, there's not a single company that was not using our resources, and we know that. When we first started this work, we were seeing all of these things going on our land, and knowing that these are all our resources. If they use metal, paper, steel, or laboratories to create things, we knew that all of that's our resources. But we were not really sure how to go about using those resources. We know we don't do anything by violence or guns or anything like that. We don't use that because we're people of peace. So over the last, since 2017, we have been walking our way through the laws and through the actions and through the documents and through the tests and the trials and everything that's going on. We've been one thing at a time, putting the law on the record, walking our way through so that we can access the things that have to do with us. And fortunately, we've been tested a couple of times, the whole time really, we were tested. And that was a test to see if by the time we get to full access of the estate, that we know how to deal with what we see and what is available to us. When you give access in terms of, let's just use liens for an example, and then I'll move on to our next topic. With regard to liens, when the lien process first came available, We could not go out there and war with the lien process. We couldn't go out there and just threaten everybody with liens, okay? Because that's not what the lien process was for. It was a step to get us to the next phase in access to the estate. And that goes for everything. That goes for nationality. That goes for all of our sovereign authority, so that by the time we are accessing fully our sovereign authority, which, by the way, access to the estate is just the beginning of the things that we do with our sovereign authority. But by the time we got to at least this phase right here, that we would not feel like there was some type of war going on the land and that we had to fight and fight and fight. There was never a war or a fight where the Moors are concerned, because there was never any other heirs. There's Moors. And when I say Moors, even those of the bloodline and birthright who do not identify as Moors, but they're still our kin, no matter who they are, there's no war between us. There's no war between us and our Christian brothers and sisters. I grew up in a Christian home, so we're not mad at Christians, okay? We're not at war or mad at anyone. We're not mad at policy enforcers. We're not mad at any of them. Why? Because all it took was for us to just stand and study and peacefully, competently walk our way through these processes. And some expected the processes to happen overnight, where the minute they declared their nationality, they wanted access to everything all at once. Well, that's not really how it works. The way it works is you learn. It's like a college education, except higher science, where you're tested on it, and then you see, okay, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to do. And we call forth our own test. This is not something that someone else is claiming. This is not something that anyone else is claiming, and we have to fight someone for it and all of that. It's not a fight. And there is no other government but us. So as fiduciaries, and we've said this many times, and we're going to continue putting this forth on the public record. It is the fiduciary's responsibility to take control or marshal all assets comprising an estate or trust, especially when the fiduciary assumes office at the grantor's or testator's death. Okay? The prerequisite to immediate access of all accounts is the fiduciary drafting their own court affidavit that pronounces our authorization, and then producing a death certificate, which we have done. Additionally, any person to whom the office of fiduciary of any state is so transferred shall, for all the purposes of this action, become and are deemed to be the trustee for the state, and the person from whom the office was transferred shall be deemed to have resigned that office. So again, we know we're not persons, we control persons. And when we say we control persons, a person is a tool on paper. Okay. So we're not doing anything, and we never had any intention of warring with anyone. So with regard to, notifying or actually filing anything under anyone, for example, some people feel that you should call a state legislature. You might as well call yourself, because we're the government. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union. Okay? And the union is between the Moors. Those are the bloodline and birthright. State and national capital buildings is us. We're the state, we're the nation. We just notify all the subjects that we know that by using our own sovereign courts. We are the clerks, we're the judges, we're the justices, we're the state legislatures, we're the Senate, we're the presidents. There's no government but the Moors. So, you know, we are going to keep that going. And so now when it comes to, again, signatures and documents of others, we want to show you in the law today where our authority to do that comes from. We've shown it previously, but we'll show you a couple of other things in the law so that we are all clear on how and why we do what we do. So now, regarding due process, in these and all proceedings where publication and notification is concerned, we've been looking at the federal rules for bankruptcy procedure. And so what we want to do is take a look at Procedure Rules 9007 and 9008 regarding notification. Okay. So let's just take a quick look at that because I want to show you everything that we're doing. And Moors, we've always been on the right track. There's no wrong way to be yourself. There's no wrong way to be yourself. Every test, every trial, everything that we have gone through, it has been where we learned something from it, and in most cases we were very successful at what we were doing. To me, success is did the ancestors prove to us through us, because this does not happen where some mysterious entity helps us. Our ancestors and Allah worked through our hands, our brain, our consciousness, our arms, our legs. Nothing gets done unless we do it. Okay. So with that being said, just one moment. With that being said, what we're going to do, just one moment. Let me just clear a couple of things here. I'm going to turn the chat off just briefly, just for a moment, and I'll turn it back on. But I want to make sure that there's not a whole lot going on there so that we can ensure that we hear and see, and then we'll turn it back on in just a little while. So with that being said, general authority to regulate notices. Now, when we talk about notices, Moors, we're talking about these letters that we have been putting on the public record with regard to resignation, resignations being sent and submitted by subjects and custodians and all of that. Do we have the authority to craft all of that and pull from the public domain? Yes, we do. So what we're looking at here is Federal Rules of Bankruptcy Procedure. Rule 9007, General Authority to Regulate Notices. Who is it that has the authority to regulate the notices? When notice is to be given under these rules, and again, we're not under anything, okay? We are aligned with the rules, but we're not under them. It says when notice is to be given in alignment with these rules, who is it that designates? The court shall designate, okay? And who is the court? The court is all Moors. Again, I must just give honor to our Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey, who said, get the courts going. Get the courts going. And he was patient with us while we learned the processes, and still is while we're putting forth all that the ancestors are inspiring to us. So we're just ever so grateful to him for giving us that push and that we needed in order to get the courts, get us speaking from our sovereign judicial capacity at all times, because that's the only way we speak. So when notice is given in alignment with the rules, the court shall designate. It says, if not otherwise specified herein, but with sovereign courts, we're not under any rules. We make the rules and the laws and the codes and the statutes. And we take codes and statutes and we say, do we want to use this one? Okay, we'll use that one, and let's elevate that and make it the law. If we see one that we don't want to use, we say, nope, we don't want to use that one. We'll cherry pick the codes and statutes, because according to the Constitution even, because we're in alignment with the Constitution. We're not under it, we're in alignment with it. All laws made by the state to the contrary of this Constitution, the one that we did, this Constitution and its treaties, not someone else's Constitution. And when I say someone else, I mean no foreign, no corporate Constitution. We're talking about the sovereign, original, indigenous Constitution. Just like when we say the United States, we're talking about this United States, not that one, not the corporate dead one, not a foreign one. We're talking about us. All laws made by the state to the contrary of this Constitution and our treaties is notwithstanding. So when notice is to be given in alignment with these rules, this court shall designate, and by this court, it's all of us, if not otherwise specified herein, the time within which the entities to whom and the form and manner in which the notice shall be given. So the court says when the notices are to be given, what the notices look like, what entities are on the notice, who, how, when, where. We decide that. Because not only are we the court, we're the fiduciaries. And in reality, our fiduciary duty and our judicial duties are one and the same. So we designate how the notices are to go out. And when we want to use any of the logos and things that we create on these papers, doesn't matter if it looks exactly like one that was previously hypothecated, because in reality they were all hypothecated and subrogated, and there was attempts to usurp. So we put that in its proper place by leaning all foreign subrogation and all dead entities. We pronounced the entities dead, and now we're governing this bankruptcy. So since all of the corporations are bankrupt, let's just take Nike, for example. Nike is bankrupt. So because we're governing the bankruptcy, anytime we want to use a Nike swoosh on a piece of paper and we say, okay, this notice is coming from Nike, it's coming from the fiduciaries. Those who are familiar with corporate takeovers, that is how they do what they do. And generally, for example, if you have a CEO who just walks off the job, generally someone will step up and put out a resignation letter or a letter saying I've moved on or something, whether he's there or not. And a lot of times we thought that that was to save face. No, in some cases it was to save face, as if everything's fine, because they didn't want to upset stockholders. But it's still what it is, you know. Though that information is ours to use in any way we choose to use it, because when we put it on our paper, it's our Nike swoosh. Because those foreign entities who came here, when they came here with nothing. Zero, nothing. They had nothing. They didn't have paper. They didn't have pencils, pens, computers. They had nothing. So how then do you all of a sudden start owning everything? You don't. That's why you don't have the title to it. The Moors have the title. And at any given time, we can create not only title, but notices and notifications to the benefit of the creditors. Because in reality, our fiduciary duty is in support of the creditors and the beneficiaries, which is the people. So it says, when feasible, the court may order any notices under these rules to be combined. That means we can do what we want with any notice that has to do with anything that's bankrupt, that we have said, okay, we're governing this bankruptcy. Fiduciaries do not, the creditors, the fiduciaries, the courts do not wait to govern the bankruptcies. We go ahead and do it. We don't need anyone's permission, because whoever is bankrupt doesn't have the authority to give permission. They're bankrupt. And particularly the dead. The dead can't even speak to say, do this or do that. We can do however we choose to do it, as the state, as the nation, as the government, and the heirs. So, I'm loving the way our ancestors have put all of this together before us and let us, work our way through these things, because it has strengthened us in every way to actually see in writing that we have the authority to do whatever we choose to do. All we have to do is clear our energy, know that there's no war. These types of when you see these things in writing, it tells you that we don't have to pick up a gun. We don't have to fight. We don't have to do anything. Just get your court and speak from the court, from our court authority. Rule 9008, service or notice by publication. And this has to do with notice to agent is notice to principal, and notice to principal is notice to agent. And it also has to do with due process. Whenever these rules require or authorize service or notice by publication, the court shall, to the extent not otherwise specified in these rules, and again, we make the rules for our courts, determine the form and manner thereof, including the newspaper or other medium to be used and the number of publications. We can put out as many letters as we want with as many signatures as we want, that we pull off the public domain and put them out there to the benefit of the creditors. So we're not doing anything off the cuff. We look at what is written, and we say, okay, our court is in agreement with this being written or that being written. And that's the purpose of these calls as well. And these conferences is so we can come together and speak and discuss our authority and how best to put it forth on the public record. And then we do it. We actually do it and notify. And when we put these on YouTube and other mediums, social media, Facebook, wherever the videos have been turning up in places that I did not know they were being put, but I'm glad that that's happening. It doesn't matter where they show up. Reddit and other Twitter and other places, or wherever they, links on Twitter and those things. When Moors want to share the videos, they can share them as often as they choose. And anyone can share the videos. So, again, we can do whatever we want to do. Now, really quickly, as I was studying that, this came up So I just wanted to, Rule 9009, which is regarding forms. And again, we don't use their forms because they're debtor forms. Their form, see, forms have a form number because it's tied to a line item in a budget. So those who are familiar with corporate expenses, corporate budgets, and corporate appropriations, the number of the form, if you look that number up in the budget, there will be a line item that has a similar number that tells you, okay, this form is tied to this part in the budget. We don't use their forms because their whole budget is a debtor budget, and we don't want to be co-debtors with them. Okay? So where forms are concerned, it even tells you in here, but again, it's somewhat subtle, but not really. That says that we have the authority to not use forms because we don't need to use them, number one. Number two, the forms are for them, really. And when I say them, they were for the dead folk, the dead persons, not people, but persons. So official forms, it says the official forms prescribed by the Judicial Conference of the United States, it says shall be used without alteration except as otherwise provided in these rules in a particular official form or in the national instructions for a particular official form. What does that mean? They're saying you cannot change and alter their forms, whatever, whatever, whatever. And this is when they were writing these. They were saying you can't change their forms. And we agreed, you know, why change it? Don't use it. Go by the national instructions. The national instructions is don't use the form, or national suggestion, because you can't tell sovereigns what to do. You don't use the form, use an affidavit. And it says here, official forms may be modified to permit minor changes not affecting wording. See, they know that they controlled the words previously. And if you can control the words, you can control what the words mean. And if you control what the words mean, then it doesn't matter what other people think they mean. They're going to mean what you say they mean. So we had to free ourselves from their words and go back to our words, ancient words. And the only way to do that is to affect the wording that's been hypothecated and subrogated by affidavit, so that we can put on our affidavits whatever we want to put, and an unrebutted affidavit stands as law. So again, official forms, this is according to this rule here, official forms may be modified to permit minor changes not affecting wording or the order of presenting information, including changes that expand the prescribed areas for responses in order to permit completed responses. So what they're saying is there's only so much room we're going to give you if you know, and we turn that around and say you have as much room as you want on your affidavit. It says delete spaces not needed for responses, or delete items requiring detail in a question or category if the filer indicates either by checking no or none or by stating in words that there's nothing to report on that question or category. So with affidavits, we can do whatever we want to do. And then they have a separate rule here for director's forms, which is a clear indicator that, and I'll just use their, you know, the spirit of this when it was written by corporate foreign entities. What they're really saying is that the little people, the little peons, use one set of forms, and then the directors use a different set. It says the director of the Administrative Office of the United States Courts may issue additional forms for use under the code. So they can issue, if they want to change a form or the wording, they can do that according to their logic. Okay. And then it says, but again, they're not directors or any of that. We're the directors. Construction. It says the form shall be construed to be consistent with these rules and the code. Construed to be means it can be, but it doesn't have to be, especially if it's done by a director. So further, I was looking here at this part here. It says the rule continues the obligatory character of the official forms in the interest of facilitating the processing of the paperwork of bankruptcy administration, but provides that official forms will be prescribed by the Judicial Conference of the United States. That just means a court has to prescribe the forms. You know how a doctor will prescribe medicine? Okay, the judiciary, which is the Moors, because subjects can't be judiciaries. Only Moors can be judiciaries. So the judiciary can say, and that's all of us, can say what form we want it to be. So we say no forms, because we're not a form of government, we are the government. It says the Supreme Court and the Congress will thus be relieved of the burden of considering the large number of complex forms used in bankruptcy practice. And see, we're not practicing. Forms are for those who are practicing. We're not practicing. How do you practice government anyway? That does not make any sense to me at all in terms of, I don't understand that. The use of the official forms has generally been held subject. I could stop right there because we're not subjects. The use of the official forms has generally been held subject to a rule of substantial compliance. And some of these rules, for example, Rule 1002, specifically state that the filed document need only conform substantially to the official form. So that's backpedaling on what they said earlier. It says the second sentence recognizes the propriety of combining and rearranging official forms to take advantage of technological developments and resulting economies. They're telling you there that the forms are directly related to the money, or the fiat system rather. And that's why we say, okay, we use affidavits. Why? Because when we're stating who we are, we use affidavits. Now, on these forms, these things that we're sending where we have their logo at the top and their signature at the bottom, that's coming from the directors and the CEOs and all of that. That's coming from our office. Okay? So we've stated on the public record by our lawful affidavit who we really are. And speaking from our court authority. And now we say, okay, this bankruptcy is going on, so we take these forms here, and these forms are not, we don't sit down at the table with subjects and corporates and make an agreement with them. We're not contracting with them. They don't have a choice in what we put on these documents. And then we put it out there so that everyone who looks and listens to them as their word or their authority will hear the truth. So with that being said, it says the director of the administrative office is authorized to issue additional forms for the guidance of the bar. And here they put the word bar in all lowercase letters. That word in all lowercase letters means that the director of the administrative office can issue any type of a form in order to stop something from happening or start something and then tell those that are doing judiciary responsibilities, hey, this form bars this and it stops that and it starts this and does that. So that's what a bar was for. A bar is to obstruct, which is what the Bar Association did while we were asleep. They obstructed us and our access to the estate. So we didn't use attorneys. Now that we're awake, we don't need them. We know the law better than they do. So with that being said, there is a couple of other things I wanted to bring forth. Boy, when I saw this, we always had the authority to write ourselves the treasury. And we've talked about this in previous calls. But I just went out onto the internet, and I put that phrase in. And the things that I saw, it was coming from different places and different ones that were saying, you know, that if the people, because see, we're the people, we're not persons, we're the people. Everyone else is persons. We're the people. It says democracy will cease to exist when people realize they can vote themselves more money. Thomas Jefferson said that. The quote was originally attributed to Alexis de Tocqueville, maybe even a couple of times, where he said a democracy, and we know democracy is not a governmental platform. It's not. A democracy can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury. And then here it's saying, Benjamin Franklin, when the people find that they can vote themselves money, that will herald the end of the republic. Alexander Hamilton, it says, famously said, when the people find that they can vote themselves money, that will herald the end. And then it says democracy can only exist until a majority of voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse out of the public treasury. And that was stated again by someone by the name of A. Tyler. So, you know, it has always been known that we can vote ourselves whatever we need and want on the land because it already belongs to us. We just have to be responsible enough to do it. And when I say responsible, I just mean competent, that's all. And we are, you know, all Moors, we're all rising and doing this together. And so, you know, the letters and things that we're putting out, they will say whatever we want them to say, and it will be done. Okay. And speaking of the letters, we originally did some letters, put some letters on the public record regarding the two, Pfizer and Moderna, with regard to quote-unquote vaccines. We edited that just a little bit and did a couple of changes to it. Just one moment. Let me pull them up so that we can take a look at them really quickly. Because they read the same as they did previously, and they're signed. Here they have the signature of Albert Bourla, former custodian who was previously in the office of president. The statement that was changed, it says right here in the center, all vaccine programs have been halted until further notice to include all mandates. policies and protocols, masking programs, medical research, vaccine distribution, and all of the Pfizer developments. Okay, so that was something that was added there. And then the same sentence was added with regard to Moderna. And let's put that one up as well. Now, when we first started looking at all that was going on the land with regard to these documents, I will say that the programming was real. There's a fear program that was put into the atmosphere that said, what if people need vaccines? What if they need the research? What if they need all of that? No worries. We actually have access to all that is necessary for us. Okay, that is what governing the bankruptcy is all about. We're saying they're not competent to govern any resources, any medical things, anything that has to do with science. They're not competent to do it because they started out in a debtor status. Debtor status is evidence of incompetence, really. It really is by law. Now, this is not just me saying this. This is what the law says. Because when there is a debtor who is attempting to do something, the only thing debtors would even attempt to do or have attempted to do in the past is to contract and keep their actions and activities going. Okay? And a debtor is in breach of all contracting from the very beginning. Because contracting is based on performance. If your performance is so poor that you automatically fall into debtor status from day one, from 1776, which all corpses and corporations did, which the United States Corporation Company, the dead one, they were debtors from day one, then that means that performance could not be carried out properly after that. Once they became debtors, which was from day one, again, they came here with nothing. So they were debtors from the very beginning. And all they've done over this time period, waiting for the Moors to stand and say, okay, wait a minute, enough of that. We're competent to govern the resources. Okay. Until that time period, and again, we've all said that. All of us together are saying we got it. We're competent to govern our own vast estate. But with regard to the United States Corporation Company, if you start out as a debtor, then debtors, according to contract law, you cannot contract any further until you square up with your creditors. Your creditors have to actually give you permission to continue doing something. And we did not do that. We didn't even know we were the fiduciaries and credit. We didn't remember that that's who we were. But now we do. So let's take a look really quickly at bankruptcy procedures. Actually, I went on to the United States Department of Justice website, which should be on the screen. Yeah, it's there. To the Justice Manual to look into what they say in their Justice Manual about. And when I say they, again, this is not, the dead cannot govern their own bankruptcy. So what we're looking at here is something that was put on the public record that we have said, okay, we're going to take a look at this, and we will call forth whatever we want to choose and use out of this manual. Because when they first wrote the manual and put it out on the public record, they didn't really originate the manual. All they did was plagiarize what we originally wrote. So I wanted to look into how it is, what is it that stops a debtor from contracting? What issue is it that says a debtor cannot contract? And that is where the performance piece came in at. So I looked at Article 59 in this manual regarding executory contracts in bankruptcy, introduction and threshold issues. First of all, an executory contract, that's kind of like an oxymoron. All contracts are supposed to be executable. So that means that there's some colorable language being put forth here. But it says the Bankruptcy Code, which is 11 USC, the whole 11 USC deals with bankruptcy, and 11 USC is the federal rules for bankruptcy procedure. Okay, all of them are one and the same, and then there's also the Code for Federal Regulations that talks about bankruptcy too. And the Code for Federal Regulation, the United States Code, and the Universal Commercial Codes, and then the the Federal Rules for Bankruptcy Procedure, the Code for Federal Regulation, the USC codes, and the UCC codes, the Universal Commercial Codes. All four of those code systems reference one another. So it took one to create the other. So as you look at them, it's like looking at a map. And all they do is repeat one another, but they just say it in different ways. Okay. And then the USC codes is until we put them on, as we continue to put them on the public record, it becomes something valid. But in its form prior to us waking up, the USC codes was just a construction of their interpretation of the Constitution, and then them pulling that out, and they would pull from the Constitution and put something in the public laws and put it together to form the USC codes. And then same thing for the Universal Commercial Codes, and same thing for the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations. So you can look at any of those and find support for all the things that we're doing with regard to this bankruptcy being a lawful and then legal bankruptcy. Now those books and those codes, the lawful part of it is what we were taught by our teachers and what we studied and with regard to the supreme law of the land. Okay, the supreme law of the land puts the lawful piece in place, and then these put the legal piece in place. That way we've got full coverage on the things that we do as we continue to access the vast estate. So here, with regard to threshold issues where bankruptcy is concerned, it says, what is an executory contract? The code does not define executory contract. So the code speaks of executory contracts, but it doesn't define it. It says, but most courts have adopted this definition. It is a contract under which the obligation of both the bankrupt and the other party to the contract are so far unperformed that the failure of either to complete performance will constitute a material breach, excusing the performance of the other. This is a classic description of what was going on while we were asleep. The United States Corporation Company was bankrupt. And then we were previously acting as the other party to the contract because we thought we were citizens. And so we could not perform the way that we are now in terms of fiduciary duty. So the debtor was trying to minister it or administrate their own bankruptcy, that constitutes a material breach automatically. And so far, the performance on a contract was not being done on either side. That is why, that's another reason why when we were thinking that we were citizens, that whenever you say Constitution, people just keep going right on past that and acting like they didn't even hear you quote a Constitution, because there was no obligation to perform. Why? Because the right status was not there. All parties were bankrupt in that scenario, or acting as bankrupts, as debtors and co-debtors. So here, that is, when we say debtors cannot contract, they can't. And that's why the United States Corporation Company, the dead one, was able, they acted out going all around the earth and making contracts with people and then just lying straight to their faces, because nobody was who they said they were. So there was no duty to perform. There was material breach even as they were calling themselves writing the contract. It was material breach already. So there was no duty to perform. Now that we are awake and we know who we are, then there is duty to perform by all. The subjects, the former custodians, all. Okay, and former custodians don't have a say in any of this, as it were. They have issued in the past opinions about things, but you can look at the Declaration of Independence and it talks about how nature and nature's God is the overarching authority where any form of independence is concerned, or any independence is concerned. And then we just considered the opinions of mankind. Okay, that language was chosen specifically to state who we are and who mankind is, and how we're the ultimate authority in all matters, in heaven and on earth. So those are some of the things that we wanted to bring forth. Here's just another little part of that, and they quote the court cases. I hesitate to call it res judicata and stare decisis, but it is court cases where it states that executory contract in this particular court case means simply a contract under which a debtor and a non-debtor each have unperformed obligations. And the debtor, if it ceases further performance, would have no right to the other party's continued performance. In other words, if we had, and we were going to stand regardless, but in our sleep, the subjects and custodians were acting in corporate status because we were not being the head that we were born to be. So even in the ancient writings, it says, in the last days, what's the last days? That's the last days of military occupation on our land. In the last days, the head will be the tail, and the tail will be the head. Then we are to be the lender and not the borrower. We don't have to be, ever. We're the creditor and not the debtor, the head and not the tail. And you can see by the things that are being done in our everyday application, we are able to use that. And when I say application, I mean the things that we do, you know, that affect our everyday living. So I had asked the ancestors, and we've had this conversation many times previously, and they said, just be patient, we'll show you. I had asked them from within, because they're not outside of us, they're within us. How do we, you know, with all this law that we know, how do we make it so that our everyday lives are made better? How do we make it so that no matter what happens, we know we're going to be okay? And they said, first, put your lawful status, your nationality on the public record, and do it a certain way according to what we know about in capitis diminutio minima, in capitis diminutio media, in capitis diminutio maxima, and in capitis diminutio nullo. They said there's the dictionary describes 3 of those, but it doesn't describe the sovereign one, the 4th one. We actually had to put that one in place. That's why this is called the 4th turning. And that's a term that you'll hear out there, the 4th turning. What is the 4th turning? The 4th turning is when the Moors wake up, we know how to get past the first 3 things that are seen in order to see the eternal. That's why it's called a turning. Eternal is part and parcel of that. So, eternal is a derivative of the word turn. So with that being said, one last thing here, contracts where performance remains due on both sides are executory. Okay, so all we're doing is doing what we do. It is our duty as the heirs, the gods to the land, the heirs to all land, natural resources, and commerce, and all of that, and to be the fiduciaries, to just go ahead and do it, because the creditors are the only ones who can do it, and it must be done by court action. Bankruptcies are governed by court. So, and we all are the court. So I will, just one moment. Okay. Are there any questions or comments of any kind regarding any of the things that we have stated thus far? And I'll go ahead and put the meeting in I'm sorry, you can star 6 to unmute yourself if you have any questions or comments of any kind, etc. Islam nobility.
Yes, I have one question. What makes you say that they're former custodians?
Because all of the which word is it that you're referring to, the former or the custodian part? Both. So former custodians is, first of all, when we were asleep and then we woke up, some Moors would go to claim a domicile and the policy enforcers would come. The policy enforcers who came knew we were the heirs. For every Moor who has gone through that, many Moors have gone through that, where they went to claim a domicile or claim something, and policy enforcers were called and they had to go, you know. That's a custodian, someone who can say you can't have that. They knew that it wasn't theirs. They knew that the heirs who were there were the heirs. But they also knew that throughout history, we have given them instructions that say they are to use the law to access the estate. They're to use the law. They are to be competent to access it, because when they're competent to access it, they'll be competent to maintain it. That's what a custodian is someone who has something in their custody, but they're not the owner, and in most cases, not the beneficiary either. They are just there gatekeeping. Okay, that's what custodian is. And when I say former custodian, I mean that the letters and things that we have stated on the public record, for example, these fiduciary letters, we as the fiduciaries have removed them from custody of our estate. So we'll read through this really quickly. It says to all office holders, this is, and again, all Moors can put this on the public record for themselves. It says, this letter serves as notification and affirmation that Chief Justice Pauline Denise Ritchie, and again, Moors, you can put your appellation there, accepts the appointment and titles of President and Fiduciary for Pfizer in accordance with United States law, the Constitution for the United States 1789 and 1791, and the Bankruptcy Law of 1933, the Emergency Banking Law of 1933, House Resolution 192, 1933, U.S. Department of Justice Tax Non-Obligated, Public Law AA 222141 for all commerce, Supreme Court rulings and opinions, and again, we're the Supreme Court, there is no other, and all other applicable federal, state, and local laws. It is the fiduciary's responsibility to take control of or marshal all assets comprising an estate or trust, especially when a fiduciary assumes office at the grantor's or testator's death. This that we are doing is what we call martial law. That is the taking of the assets, taking control of the assets that are on our own vast estate using the law. The prerequisite to immediate access of certain accounts.
Then why haven't you taken control of any of those assets yourself, Pauline? What about First Avenue? Why haven't you taken?
Hold on. Because here's the thing, Morris, because I can only speak to the living. Again, we're doing all of those things right now. So let's continue. It says, it is the fiduciary's responsibility to take control of all assets. See, we don't need to use violence. We don't need to use force. We need to go ahead and competently use the law.
Come on, you fucking windbag. Do what you're telling everybody else to do, you fucking...
Okay, so the prerequisite to immediate access of all accounts, really, is the fiduciary providing a court affidavit of authorization and producing a death certificate. Additionally, any person to whom the office of fiduciary of any state is so transferred shall, for all the purposes of this action, become and are deemed to be the trustee for the state, and the person from whom the office was transferred shall be deemed to have resigned that office. All vaccine programs have been halted until further notice, to include all mandates, policies, and protocols, masking programs, medical research, vaccine distribution, and all other Pfizer developments. The bearer does possess national identification bearing the United States Department of State Tax Non-Obligated Public Law Number AA222141, as stated by the original indigenous Moorish American state. All authorities, duties, responsibilities, and benefits for the office of the president are hereby transferred. Additionally, there's the answer to the question there. When we say former custodian, that's what we mean. There were some custodians in our offices, because every office belongs to the Moors, who had custody of things. And let me say this about that too. Those that are down the street in domiciles who are not from here, they don't own those domiciles. They have custody of them until we competently say, okay, we're the fiduciary for that. We lien it. We use the processes that we've been using. And then at any time, we're the tax assessor, we're the mortgage company, we're all of that. Because we're governing the bankruptcy of all of those entities. Islam.
And really quick, just to add some context, because it's quite a few things that the ancestors have been putting on my mind and heart as well. And what you just said about people who are not from here, who are living in domiciles and it not belonging to them, is spoken to in the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, where it speaks about people answering for crimes, but then it gets into private and public property, right? So it says, just to go to the public property part, it says that in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. And then the very last clause says, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. You obviously can't have private property if you're not Aboriginal, Indigenous, Moorish American. The public property is obviously not just roads, bridges, railroads, the property used for administrative and legislative and judicial buildings, but it's also property that we let them live on, like the reservations for the Indians. But the only difference is that since the Indians were already here before the Europeans came over here, the Europeans get to live on property that we had allowed them to live on for the just compensation, right? And I was looking up some of the different designations that they used to refer to in Europe, and it relates to somebody who lives on a fief, which is F-I-E-F.
Yeah.
And a fief is something that you live on as long as you pay your rent to the king or whatever, right? Correct. But in America, we always shared the status of nobility, whereas in Europe, it was exclusive to only a few families. Here in the Americas, also known as Almaroc, that status was shared. So the just compensation is really the rent that they should be paying to us. You see what I'm saying? Private property shall not be taken for public use without just compensation. In relationship to a few other things, there's one more thing that I want to share too, real quick. In 2014, Pope Francis wrote a letter to the one doing business as president of the United States Corporation, Barack Obama. And in the third or fourth paragraph of that letter, it was two of them, it says that the corporate, and you were speaking about this earlier too, Empress, it says this corporate constitution provided for the creation of a new kind of federal citizen, a U.S. citizen being lowercase, and from that point onward, from the perspective of the new federal municipal government formed by the Act of 1871, American state citizens, which is Moorish American nationals, the inhabitants of the domestic 50 states, were regarded as non-resident aliens. This is the part that's really important for, I think, for all of us. It says, this same corporation doing business as the United States of America Incorporated began operating two separate governments at once. The municipal government of the District of Columbia and the federal government owed to the states, owed to the Moors, both under the auspices of the United States Congress. So when you say that they are no longer custodians, I can see that angle, but I also feel like since they're still in custody of our offices, they're still physically there and they're still physically in possession of resources that belong to the creditors. And the Pope is pointing out how they're operating both of these governments at the same time. It's gonna, I think that as we continue to like send in those notices and send in those notifications to let them know that we're actually we're making you go back to the Republic. You see what I'm saying? By, you know, in my mind, I see it as a declaration of trust, but simply a declaration of trust that is the Constitution. You like literally as the text of it on paper, it would just be the Constitution. But I think a project that we should all do very soon is to write that out, but to also include a second page where we are going to define all the words and phrases in the Constitution, because the like everything that I just explained about public property, including fiefs and private property only being property for the Moors, that I think should be spelled out. You see what I'm saying? For example, in the preamble, it says, "We the people of the United States." A lot of people don't know that that is only talking about us, the Moors, exclusively, right? And just to have a page, and they do this in law, you know what I'm saying? They'll have a definitions clause. We basically, I think we should do that as soon as we can, and I think that we should also make it clear that the military, because that's also what's in the civil orders, is when, the letter from Pope, quote unquote, doing business as Pope Francis to, quote unquote, doing business as President Barack Obama. They talked about how the Provost Marshal General and the Joint Chief of Staffs, they have to keep the, quote unquote, police forces and everybody else in check. And just one more thing, and I'm gonna pull it up right now so I can just quickly be able to share it with y'all. But there is a video on YouTube that goes over the political system of Iran. And I was watching it, and I felt as if it was very, very similar to how our ancestors meant for us to run this government, and even keep on protesting. Sorry, and even the Prophet Noble Drew Ali meant for us to run our government here in the de jure Republic, United States of America, right? It basically goes over how the people can elect people to the parliament, which is another version of the legislature, but the leader of the Islamic Revolution, and that person in Iran is chosen based off of a body of those people who are saying that they are basically in the theocratic lobby. They have the ability to, not only does the military stand by, it's like a little cartoon, and it shows you in a very very nice way how it works. But he stands over all of that, like, or not just him, but them as a total, theocratic body. They stand over it all, and for us, some of the things started to make more sense to me, because not only did Barack Obama give the speech when he was still in office about how Benjamin Franklin had a Quran in his library, and Morocco was one of the first countries to acknowledge the quote-unquote independence of the United States of America. In Section 1, in Article 1 of the Constitution, it says that the legislative power is vested in a Congress. But then it goes through to show you how the Congress, and basically what I'm saying is that there is a difference in some of the most minute of words. Congress of the United States, and Congress just means etymologically a meeting of forces, or a meeting between people. You know what I'm saying? So obviously we all know that even the people that are on the call right now, this is a Congress. Yes. You see what I'm saying? This is a Congress of the United States, and any other Moors in any other territory in the 50 states can do the same thing, right? Yeah. And then, but it says that the Congress And then it starts to give you all the rules, and it specifically says that for their services, they will be paid out of the treasury because they are the servants. They're the quote-unquote custodians as servants. And I think that, I need to put this in the chat because the language of the video for Iran, the political system in Iran specifically says that the theocratic lobby in Iran has to vet the things that the parliament wants to pass. They have to get together and make sure that it's in alignment with the will of God. You see what I'm saying? And that I feel like is in, you see what I'm saying? And I feel like that is in alignment. And once you see the video, and it's a real short video, it's 3 minutes. So you can show it to us. You can show it to the Moors on the call now if you want, Empress. But if not, I'm gonna just put it in the chat, and then hopefully you guys will go and watch it when you have time. It's 3 minutes, and you will. Okay, I'm gonna do it right now. Hold on. But I yield. I just wanted to share that. I'm gonna put the video in there right now.
Thank you. What you're saying is so key because first, let's talk about that Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment is called the Takings Clause. That's what they call it. That's where all the taking happens, is the Fifth Amendment. In that Fifth Amendment, just one moment, I need to pull it up. But in the Fifth Amendment, in fact, let me just go ahead and pull it up because it's important that we see that again, all we're doing is what the Fifth Amendment says that we should be doing. A lot of times when you try to pull up the Fifth Amendment, they want to pull up a whole bunch of explanations and all types of madness and not just state the actual Fifth Amendment. Let's pull that up really quickly. Because it's important that we, let's see, they want to explain it, but we don't want them. We have our own explanation for the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment says, now remember, Moors, this is again talking about capitalism. Okay, we've been talking about capitalism. This is part of the study that I did in terms of knowing where capitalism, which is whether to use, who's using capital letters and why. And what are they saying and who are they talking to and who are they talking about? So this Fifth Amendment says, just one moment, it says no person. We're not persons, we're people. So now you know they're talking about commerce and they're talking about all caps names. And whether they're talking about a living natural person is for us to say. We don't care what they say, we have to say it. No person shall be held to answer for a capital, comma. Well, what is a capital? Who's answering for a capital? It's a capital letter, or all caps name. No person shall be held to answer for a, that means don't answer them when they say a name or otherwise infamous crime, unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land. That means the people of the land should be governing their own capital and capitalism. That's what that's saying. Or in the militia, and what is a militia? According to the Second Amendment, it is a well-organized body, not just hairy-carry random citizens running around with guns. That's not a militia. A militia is a well-organized body. It says, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. We're not at war. So, okay. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. That right there, let me just stop there for just a moment, Morris. This is why our courts are so important. Because when we speak and put our own persons on trial, then no inferior court can come back and try and do that again. That's really what that's saying. That when a lawful court, when we govern our own affairs, they can't govern them. And they were only practicing anyway. That's why our courts are so important. And what is our courts? Each more putting court action language in their affidavits and speaking into the affairs of men. It says, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. You know what this is saying? And some are not going to like what I'm telling you here, but that's what it's saying. What this is saying is that a person can be deprived of life, liberty, or property when due process is in place. They can, because due process will tell you who is it that owns the property, who's the heirs to the property. That's why this is called the takings clause. That's one of the reasons why. And then it says, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. And listen, foreigners and fiat people is not just compensation for the Moors. It's not. It's not. That is why we had to have our own money system, our own economic system, so that we're not subjected to foreign entities taking private property and doing whatever they want to do with it. Just compensation has nothing to do with a fiat entity, nothing to do with a fiat entity. And so with regard to even the building down the way, all we're doing is getting the opinions of mankind on the way to govern that building, because it's older and it's going to need some repair and some things done to it. But that's another reason why I chose it, because we need to know that. So is it tackling something that's, you know, a little bit more? I could have chosen something brand new. I could have chosen something that doesn't need repair. But we need to know how to go about doing all of that. And it's becoming clearer and clearer to me that I don't really even need the opinion of mankind on that, because there are Moors who can do all of that. There are Moors who know how to repair buildings. There are Moors who know how to get the supplies and things like that. I'm looking at the process so that we know what to rebut and what to lift to the level of law and what to just, you know, say we don't need this part right here. Okay. So I'm not in any rush. It's already ours. We know that already. So this, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. When you give delarium and you put delarium on the public record for property, first of all, where is the property? Well, your constitutions that you put on the public record will state where the property is. Otherwise, A fraudulent constitution, which is a commercial document, has not been properly rebutted. But in the case of the Moors, we have properly rebutted all constitutions. You have to state where the property is first in order to know who the government is there. And in order to know who is in control of the capital. Being compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, where is the court? Is it a corporate dead court that only exists on paper, or is it the Moors and the consular courts and our United States courts, the living original indigenous United States? That's this we the people, not those the persons. And I'll say this about the foreigners. Foreigners do not have a sovereign capacity on the land. They are individual, either wards of the state or persons, corporate persons. They only came here to work. That's why it's called occupation. So let's just go ahead and put that in its economic category. That is what it is. Foreigners who came here did not come here because everybody was so in love. They were here to work. Those are the facts. Okay. Things happened along the way with some, and here we are. Okay. Islam.
And I just want to add one quick thing to when you were speaking on taking the opinions of mankind. Mm-hmm. That's actually enshrined in the Constitution as well, because like I was saying before, a Congress, which is what this is right now, is not the Congress. So even if they go back to the Republic and they stop operating like I was saying before, two at the same time under the same name, which is what they've been doing. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that they can do is make it like if the House of Representatives was to agree on something, give it over to the Senate and they agree on it, and give it over to a president or whatever and he agrees on it. After that, it has to go to a Congress, because only a Congress of the United States has the power to legislate. So only thing that they ever really can do is make a recommendation, just like I was saying with Iran, and then the theocracy has to vet it and then approve it. And you talk about it all the time when you say, okay, we can go into the codes and either repeal or approve. You see what I'm saying? Pay attention to in the Constitution when it says United States and then when it says United States of America, because that's you know what I'm saying, like you was just saying, we the people of this organic and de jure United States, and it interchanges it as well throughout the Constitution, because the United States of America is the management company that we are overseeing. But for them to, the only way they can participate is to, they would have to affirm the leadership of the people. You see what I'm saying? And that's why the 9th Amendment and the 10th Amendment talks about that as well. So yeah, that's the only quick little thing that I wanted to add. They can be Republican de jure, but they have to stop with the capitulation or the all capital letter United States of America Incorporated in Delaware. You see what I'm saying? And the First Amendment is good too, because it talks about freedom of religion, but freedom of religion means that you are free to live by your religion. You're free to live by it, and nobody can take that away from you. And I think that's why the prophet was talking about how you can use the Bible to indict the European, because his Circle 7 Quran makes it clear who the Moorish Americans are, and He gave us the longitude and latitude coordinates of the empire, and in the Bible it talks about it talks about who we were in Genesis, and it talks about in Deuteronomy how you shall not distress the Moabites. I want to say that that's Deuteronomy 2:9. But yeah, just to notice those differences in the writing style of the Constitution. Because it makes it clear that only thing that they can do is make a recommendation, but the Moors still have to approve it. So I was just building on what you were saying about taking the opinion of mankind, because that's right there in the Constitution.
Thank you, Nobility. So I'll say this about what's being said. We're not by any means looking at them with some type of a preoccupation. We're not overly just looking at them like we need to get them, because we don't. We're not even really paying attention. What we're doing is governing the estate and their subjects. They don't have a say. None. So to us, and this is just from our perspective, to us, we're not even looking in that direction. There is no Congress that's not the Moors. There is this land doesn't have two heads. There's no other government on this land, period. They're not governing. They never have been, never will be. They didn't come here to govern. There's no legislature over there. None of that. There's no Congress over there. We're the Congress, and we're a Congress. We're a Congress among the Moors. We're the Congress with the Moors, because we are the Moors. That's how we see it. That's actually according to the law as well. Foreigners never have governed, never been a legislature, never been a Congress, never been a Senate, never been lawmakers, never been lawgivers, never been law enforcement, never been anything that had to do with the law, never written the law, never. It's only us. Period. And all we had to do was stand and say, because see, I'll refer to my favorite chapter in the Circle 7, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple for Science. Chapter 29, Magistrate and Subject. That's all there is on this land. There is no one. Either you are a magistrate on this land or you're a subject on this land. Period. On this earth, either you're a magistrate or a subject. Period. And you get to choose based on bloodline and birthright. Based on bloodline and birthright. The Moors get to choose which one of those roles they want to engage in. We have chosen to be ourselves. Ourselves is the magistrate, period. And then chapter 29 in the Circle 7 talks about how the subjects are here only to assist in raising us to our sovereign power. They never have and never will be a government. Listen, occupation, that's what that was. Unlawful at that. And we'll go back to performance, contract performance. The Moors, we had to do what we're doing now, or else they were not, the subjects had no duty to obey the Constitution if we were not being the lawgivers and the lawmakers and the law enforcers. They had no duty to do that. And that's why Moors, You know, I used to hear Moors say they're just lawless. They're just a lawless bunch of foreigners. No, they're not. Let me tell you who they are. Those are some subjects that are saying, Moors, we need you. We're here to lift you to your sovereign status and your sovereign power and sovereign authority. And we're going to occupy until you come. Justice Yaqub Ali, yes, indeed. Occupy until the Savior returns. That's what an occupation is. They call it a job. Period. So we don't even see them with all of that, like, you know, they're a Congress and they're this and they're that. We don't even, our eye does not see that. Our third eye does not see that. Our first eye doesn't see it in any way, shape, form, or fashion. All we see is we're the government. We're governing the bankruptcy of the subjects over our land. Yes, I see a circle 7 on someone's screen there. Yes, indeed. Justice Morpheus says, Big Mama is back. Islam. And Empress Chitali, the people govern the land. Yes. We don't see all that other stuff. We never have, really. And in some cases, it made it look like some people thought that we were living in fantasy land by saying and doing the things that we say and do. Our own money, our own courts, our own this, our own that. That's not they just couldn't see at the time. And that's okay, because I'm sure they can see now. We mean business, don't we, Moors? We mean business about this vast estate. You know, there is no, look, we are God and there is none beside us all. And see, even according to Unum Sanctum, there's no thing with two heads running around and both of them saying they're government and both of them saying that they're the, you know, the heirs to this land. None of that doesn't even exist. And when you talk about China, I see in the chat it says China governs China. We govern China.
Islam, we govern China. That's why the capital of China is Beijing, and that's why it has that's why they have a red flag. In terms the subjects are here to serve. You see what I'm saying? As long as they're here on the land, like you said, it's magistrate and it's subject. They are here to serve. They can't legislate law because they're not the United States. They're not the de jure United States. They're the United States of America, or the United States that belong. They're the United States that belongs to America. So they're here to do what we tell them to do. You see what I'm saying? So for the and
they know their job, by the way. They know their job.
Yeah.
They know their job. Yeah. They know their job. So we don't even have to look in that direction. When we give, and that's something that we have been doing consistently, is putting the law on the public record and moving on. You know, and sometimes some did not understand that right away, where we would put it on the public record and then keep it moving.
But this is what I'm Islam. You know, this, not to cut you off, Empress. I'm sorry, but this is what I'm saying. When we call ourselves putting the law on the public record, I think we need to write the legislation in the red ink like we've been doing, but we need to give instructions to the clerk in the legislation, or, you know what I'm saying, the building where the legislation happens, where the dome is at the top of it, right?
Nobody's there. No one is there. Go look for yourself. They show video of it. There's a live feed on YouTube. Go look and see that no one is there.
Okay, I'll have to see that.
They're not there. No one is there. And they say because of COVID. In fact, here, let me do something real quick. So what I did, and I'm just proving that no one's there, I pulled up the Supreme Court website, and we know we're the Supreme Court. It says, out of concern for the health and safety of the public and Supreme Court employees, the Supreme Court building will be closed to the public until further notice. The building will remain open for official business, but it's not because the employees are not there. Please see all COVID-19 announcements here. There's no one there. We're the Supreme Court. We're the legislature. They have fences around that. I saw some video of some people who went to D.C. to pray in front of the Supreme Court building, and it's fenced off, and, no one's there. So, talking about giving things to a clerk and all of this and that, we're the clerk. I can't stress that enough, Morris. We're it, or we're they. We're the clerks. We're the judges. We're the justices. We're all of that. All we have to do is keep doing what we're doing. No employees are working behind a fence. Thank you. They're not. And so those offices are not vacant. We sitting right here. We're sitting right here. Period. And so, Moors, our minds are being transformed. Empress Shatali, you said it. That's really true. I mean, because when you're working, when you go to the Supreme Court building and you're working from there, because I went down to the Supreme Court building at Olympia, and I thought, even, just traveling down there, I thought to myself, I sure would like to be in my kitchen right now. But it's a beautiful building, and I would love, I'm looking forward to working, and doing the things that need to be done. It just so happens that it's not necessary today to go down there and work, but it will be at some point. It will be at some point. And we will know when that time comes, just like we knew to do all the things that we've done thus far. We have the cushiest jobs yet, so we also have to ensure that when we, as we move back into, because see, those buildings were our buildings from the beginning, they always have been. And when we, as we move back into full 3D governing, we have to ensure that our egos and all of that stuff is where it should be, so that the people want to be on the land, and so that the people want to do what needs to be done. See, when we were first going to sleep, you actually have to be comfortable to go to sleep, usually. So what did they do? Don't even believe those slave stories. They made the Moors very comfortable. They did everything like they were supposed to. They did we didn't have to lift a finger. And after a while they said, oh, you don't want to go to DC to do things. You don't want to go to your capital to do things. Then we'll do it. And none of us objected. And next thing you know, and then we running around looking for a pacifier. That was then. This is now. And the things that we have done to wake ourselves up have been not so comfortable. Right? Yeah, not so comfortable. In fact, we've all been called outside of our comfort zone. But that's what it takes to wake all the way up and say, oh, stop the whole earth. Stop the whole earth so that we can get our bearings and see and govern. And it happened like that. And we all did it together. And we're going to continue doing it together. We are one, period. We are one, and that is not going to change. So we might as well, we might as well party because we are one, and that's not going to change. So we might as well party together and work together and all of that. Just get used to it, and I think it's going to be very beautiful. It has been thus far. Very beautiful. Because I think that, like our energies, we attract one another with our energies. Moors who like to war attract other Moors who like to war because they're warriors, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the nation tribe that they came from. Other Moors say, we'll kick back and be peaceful because we want it to be a path of least resistance, so to speak, or path of most peaceful resistance, or no resistance at all, really. So, it's just a matter of we get to choose how we want to govern. We get to choose that. And as soon as we choose it, it manifests. Because believe it or not, this matrix belongs to us. It's a matrix. It responds to us, not the other way around. So, we got this. It's a wrap, a wrap, a wrap. And we're the thing that I'm learning now is just how to enjoy the journey, because we woke up and hit the ground running and didn't sleep most of the time. For the last since 2017, we just been gone. And the ancestors are now saying you need to enjoy the journey, because that's really what it's about. It's about the journey. And I knew that because we have stories to tell about, events that have happened to us and things like that, and tests and trials that we've been through. But it's about the journey, so we need to enjoy the journey. And that's the part that I'm learning. It's going to take some programming on my part. I have to program myself to enjoy. I've loved this part of it. There are other parts that we need to explore as well, in conjunction with this one, with these parts, with the testing and the demonstrations and all of that. We're so yeah. And we all do that together. I will say this about those who have been on these calls. I want to thank you from the bottom. There is no bottom to my heart. There's no top to it. It's endless, but as is with all of us. But I just want to thank you, because your testaments just added so much energy and life to the journey while we were going through the whole studying 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, And we're never going to stop studying because that's just what judiciaries do. But it's just been things that could have been stressful were not stressful. Tests and things, they have been some of the most beautiful experiences that I've ever had because you all were here. So I had an outlet to talk about them with those who won't think we're crazy. You know, so I'm just grateful. And so I just want to open my heart and say thank you. So with that being said, I've gone on enough. Are there any other comments, wisdom, etc.?
Islam.
Islam Empress, and then the nobility.
Thank you, nobility. I just want to say ditto to everything you just said, and I'm going to give the love back to you and my eternal appreciation for what you have done for my family here. All of us sit through this call, and we take notes. We've had some really big obstacles to try to keep us getting this work done. Well, we've overcome just about every last one. And we've been drawing from your strength and the rest of the Moors who have contributed to this call. These are the most amazing people on the planet right now. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah. That's how I feel about you all. And I just want to thank you for everything. All the love. It shows, sweetheart. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love you. And I've said it many times, I'm not going anywhere. I got a lot of work to do. And I need you all. Anyway, Islam,
oh, we need each other. We all need each other. And listen, you all have no idea how much I love you. You have each and every one, whoever hears this, you just have no idea how much I love you. Ooh, you have no idea how much I love you. And we deserve our estate. We deserve it. You know, our ancestors knew we did. So, you know, nobility. There was a noble who said something. Islam nobility.
North Carolina to
Islam.
All right. The delirium satisfies that discharge. It discharges the debt. It's the checkmate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Beauty in the. Okay.
Yes.
So I was hearing on another website, get rid of that driver's license. You are straddling the fence. You can't be in jurisdictions at the same time. But cash at me some reserve federal promissory note. You're the only one that's not doing that. I mean, there's nobody else taking the stand in the jurisdiction and standing up in it. So what's your take on
that? Oh, boy. My take on that is that, first of all, somebody had to do it, and it had to be a Moor. And there are other Moors in the past who drew up money, and it just, for some reason, it didn't manifest to the level that. But I think that the Moors, we were all just ready. And also, I know that we're the sovereign authority and there is no other. I know that. I know that if we say toilet paper is the money, then people better start using it. You know, it was just a matter of time. And we had to look at the law and say, okay, and look at the codes and statutes and make that which is lawful match the legal. Okay, that, and once we did that, it's there's no stopping us. And thank you in the chat. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who wished me a happy born day, happy solar return. Thank you so much. August the 3rd is my solar return, and I'm just it couldn't have been, well, it could have been better because y'all could have been actually physically here, but aside from that, you all made it just so worth it. And I turned 54, which equals 9. So I am just so excited. And there was a solar storm that hit the earth yesterday too, on my solar return. So I'm really excited. And I felt it when it hit. I know exactly when it hit. Because I was out at, speaking of China, Empress, I was out at China Lake at Tacoma, Washington Territory. There's a lake called China Lake, and I walked into a clearing out at the lake, and I felt like I was levitating. It was so powerful that I have no words for what I felt. The minute I walked into the clearing, my heart chakra started vibrating, physically started vibrating. So I knew that was where I needed to be. So it was just, it was beautiful. Thank you for those who say that in the chat. It was only a matter of time, Morris, before we reached the goal and the place where we could look and say, yes, this is absolutely real, and everything that we said is absolutely true, and we have dominion over all. It was only a matter of time. We've been through it. Some have been through it with consorts and family members and friends. Some have had people turn on them throughout the events and things like that. But you know what? And now the work has just begun, but it's going to be the work is taking on a different energy because of what we have available to us, Morris. There is nothing that can be withheld from us. We're the fiduciaries for everything, and we're the sovereign stewards. We're the sovereign custodians now. We're every office there ever was. Will it be work? Sure, but we did that anyway. We worked anyway. It's just that now we get to actually create our own work so that it doesn't feel like work. So I am so excited for us because there's some things that I see manifesting, and I can't talk about it right now, but we have not a worry ever. We have not a worry ever. Everything that we need and everything that we want is available to us. We just have to keep doing what we're doing. And fortunately, we've not lost a single more in the Grand Rising in terms of those who are on these calls and who have been demonstrating in the way that we demonstrate as well. We've not lost a single more. We've not lost a single one. Yes, there's been some tests and trials. There's definitely been those, but we've not lost anyone. So I'm grateful for that we're all here. We're all still here. And we can see we're seeing the fruits of our labor. That was what I was hoping that the ancestors would manifest quickly, is the fruits, of the labor that each Moor has done. And that's happening now. So we don't hear a lot of the things we heard 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. You know. I have a question, Morris. Has anyone had an issue lately on this call where someone did not accept your moorishe ID? Has anyone had that happen in the last 3 months where someone did not accept your moorishe ID?
In the last 3 months, no.
That has never happened, Islam.
It did happen, but it was maybe 6 months ago or 8 months ago or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Is that not progress? Because when we first started doing this work, that was the main thing that we heard is they didn't accept my moorishe ID. That's a lot of progress. I will say that. That's a lot of progress for the last 90 days. 90 days. That's a lot of progress. And we're hearing a lot more testaments from the Moors of success in areas that, you know, it's becoming a lot more frequent than it was initially, you know. And so that's all we were concerned about is what's happening with our kin, you know, what's happening with our kin, what's happening with the Moors, you know, who messing with my family, who messing with my kin. You got problems if you messing with my kin. So, you know, it's all good. It's all good. Let's keep going. Islam, Empress.
I have an Old Testament. So I was working as a temp, and the main company that I was working for. Am I getting?
It's breaking up a little bit.
Let me just see if I can turn off the speaker. Okay, is that better?
Much better.
Okay, yeah, I had the speaker on. Okay, so I was working as a temp, and the main company was a bunch of brothers and sisters I was working under. So,
how long ago was this? Was it recently?
Say it again.
Was it recently?
No, this is in 2020.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, there was 2 Albions working with us, and it was a lady and a man. So the lady, she was watching everybody. She was clocking their time and stuff like that, and she was going and reporting. And so a couple of other brothers came back and said, you know, she's telling on everybody. But nobody confronted her. Nobody got confronted about her reports. They just, you know, let her go back to work, you know. And the guy, the Albion, he was a temp too. And for some crazy reason, the temp agency decided to give him some kind of authority. You a temp just like me. I don't know how you coming up to me, you know, to say anything. But they really did. They gave him some kind of leadership authority as a temp, you know, on the job. And so he walked up to me and he said, what job are you doing?
Wow.
And the other the brother that I was working with, he said, man, go on back where where you came from and stuff, you know. And so it was just amazing to see how we all worked together, and we were the predominantly the ones there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And how we handled things. Wasn't nobody dismissed off the job, even though the Albions were doing what they do.
Mm-hmm.
They backbite, you know. They go, you know, that's how they get ahead, you know, with the stuff that they do. But I had a wonderful time, and I said, this is what it's going to look like, you know.
Uh-huh.
We are the authority on the jobs. You know, there was a little bit of music playing. Sometimes we did take extended lunch, but we got the job done.
no problem. Everything was smooth, you know, and we liked coming to work.
Yeah.
So that was the difference. And you know, because some people would think like, what is it going to be like, you know, with us governing? It's going to be good. It's going to be nice.
Yeah.
It's going to be nice. I experienced it. I mean, there was no need for anybody to that was an authority to say, you know, we heard something about something. No, everybody get back to work. Get back to work. We got this, you know.
Yeah.
And that was my insight. And I can't wait until we come into full fruition where we are in offices and, you know, and are in the forefront in that way, because it's going to be good. Even the ones that were doing what they normally do on the job to get ahead, you know, even they had a good time working with us. I mean, this is gonna be great. So I was just sharing my insight with all of you, just be ready. When when we're in full to fruition, it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice.
Well, the resignation letters is the start of that. We had to clear out the old. We have to clear that out first, and then we move on into where we're. See, majority of them are not there anyway. We just proved that. The majority of them are not there. We just needed to put it in writing on the public record that it's okay for them to go, because, see, they couldn't really go unless we stood up and said, okay, y'all can go. And now it will be us, and you're right, Empress. The ancestral energies of unification and togetherness and love and being ourselves, all of that is here. It's on the earth. And I'm telling you, we did not get to be the most powerful force in the universe for nothing. That's not an accident. We are unified naturally. See, some would have us believe that we're not unified naturally and that we do that whole black crabs in a bucket thing. That's not natural for us. It's not. Then that was very temporary. That was a little snapshot in time. Naturally, we look out for each and every one of us. We look out for each other. And we do that whole village where we trust our children with one another and all of that. So that thought process that says, oh, I don't trust anybody with my children and all this and that stuff is going out the window. It's, you know, some may want to hold on to it. Don't hold on to that. Let it go. Let it go. And then, of course, we're going to be wise, but this is our inheritance. Thank you. Thank you in the chat. This is our inheritance. And we naturally love one another. We naturally trust one another. We're naturally looking out for one another, and we naturally never let any foreign matter come between us. Naturally, we saw things for what it was. Now, again, we're not mad at anyone. We're not mad at foreigners. We're not mad at modern Europeans. We're not mad at other Moors. We're not mad at anyone. We love everyone. And I'm glad that everyone is getting back in their proper place, or is already in their proper place and proper status. And I say already because I know it's a spell. The things we put out on the public record is a spell, so we ensure that when we speak, we spell correctly. Because by the time people hear this, it will begin to manifest for the new Moors that are coming along who may hear this. And they will see where unity started back in the 1900s, in the early 2000s, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Just imagine what we would be thinking if we looked back and saw videos of our great-grandmother and grandfathers and all of them talking about how unified they are and how they're putting the law in place and how they done stamped and sealed the law and it's going out. And they're all voting together and governing together. Think about what that would do in terms of putting a spell, casting and breaking spells in our mind, where we could literally see that. Them loving one another and helping one another through whatever it is that they're going through. And we can say that when our heirs and great grand heirs look back, they will be able to see. They'll be able to see that, yes, we were unified and we were governing and we meant business about this estate because of them and because of our ancestors, those who came before and those who are coming after. I mean, you know, the things that my parents did in that system I'm still just in awe of what they were able to do in that system, especially now that I know what that system is about. They had to be really strong to do the things they did.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Islam, Empress.
Islam.
Yeah, so I wanted to add to what the Empress just said. So I'm currently in the place where I'm transitioning to not needing to work. So I'm working, not really working, I'm governing. And that's what I put down in my calendar. A DoorDash job, and I have already leaned them and sent them the documents and everything. And I was like, I'm governing while I'm out here. Before, I just used to be frustrated. Let me just get this done. I don't even want to do this. And I was like, you know what? I'm governing this.
Yeah.
And as I was, doing it, I was like, they aren't compensating very much to all that do this job. And I said, what I'm going to do, because this is my company, I'm going to create a spreadsheet and start paying myself. And I said to myself, okay, I need to multiply this compensation that I'm paying myself because it's not sufficient. And I said I need a multiplier number, and I need to figure out how they've coded this compensation or how they did within my company. And I kept meditating on it, and I went to sleep, and your spirit actually visited me and gave me a number.
Was it? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
What was the number?
Yeah, it was 18.
That's 2 times 6. Yes.
Yeah. And and I don't know if it was, I still have to break, all the ways that they divide it and say, okay, is it the base and then all this, but the multiplier number for, possibly each pickup or whatever, the number I got was 18. And then other thing I said, I've been doing the affidavits and everything and sending them to mail. And I was like, well, you've been nervous about demonstrating in person, so this is the perfect opportunity to demonstrate on your land at all your companies. So for every pickup, I've been doing court actions, and at first I was nervous, and there was nothing to nervous. Like, they would just look at me and be like, okay, and
See, people would think that's weird, but you know what? That is not. That is what we are supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
The spirit to do that demonstration, Empress. Your third eye has to be wide open for you to see that, and that's why people don't even trip off of it.
Yeah. And then I even caught the app glitching. It was like the app told me to stay in the car that they would notify the people in the company to come and give me the order, and then it changed real quick. I was like, oh, this is hilarious. This is just funny. So yeah, so I just wanted to share that about governing, even if we are in a place of working, governing the company that we own, because it's a perfect opportunity to see like what needs to change here, like, you know, within the company. So
that's what we are actually supposed to be doing. That what you just did is why the resignation letters are so important.
Yes.
You're actually doing fiduciary duties on the job.
Yes, yes.
That's what we're supposed to be doing.
What territory are you in, Empress?
Minnesota territory.
Yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what we're doing here with regard to all that's going on. You know, federal way, court actions and all of that, the whole nine, governing the buildings and all of that, all day, every day. Not even thinking twice, just doing it. And preparing other demonstrations to do so that we can do the demonstration and then show you that, hey, look, this is done too. I showed you all the vacant sign on the building that we emptied, right? That I think I showed you the vacant sign because I took photos of it and showed you the vacancy sign on the building. All we have to do is keep doing what we're doing. Go ahead, Nobility, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add.
You look beautiful. Go ahead, Nobility. Sorry.
No, you good. I just wanted to ask: are we still going to do Are we still doing the convention in October?
Yes, we are. I need to get that together because I don't.
Well, we all do. We all need to.
I don't have it together.
We all do.
Together.
So.
I am actually doing a travel demonstration because we all need to start traveling on our vast estate using our trust.
Correct.
So that's really what that is for, is can you travel using your trust? That's really what that weekend is for. And in the interim, I'm doing the same thing. Taking the letters that we're doing. We did one for American Airlines. We showed you that one. And we're going to just send a lien, the letters, and a schedule of flights. And say, and we're going to just do a couple of test runs before then, you know, so that we can work out whatever needs to be worked out in terms of, you know, getting back and forth and through and about, you know. But I don't want to use fiat for any, you know, and then I don't use it. I use sovereign credits out of my sovereign account that I've changed over and done, terminated all corporate contracts on. But I want to be able to use paperwork to get where we're going. I don't care if I'm going to China and back. We all need to know how to do first class travel without limits, because that's what everybody else was doing, using our status, supposedly. So, you know, I know that that's where we are right now, and I'll say that I have a little bit of nervousness about it, but that's not going to stop me from doing it.
So what are you planning on doing? What are you planning on demonstrating exactly, Empress?
Being able to send documentation to an airline, and then going to the counter with the same documentation and saying, you know, I'm the fiduciary for the bankruptcy, and we need to travel from here to here and back. And so we want to travel from here to here and back. in our fiduciary capacity. Because everything we do is fiduciary capacity. Everything we do is government work. Whether it's just doing a site survey or whether it's traveling to see someone. We're still going to be talking about nationality and then gauging the performance, because that's what we just talked about, performance. Gauging the performance as we go. So I have some travel that's coming up, and I'm just going to gather all the documentation, affidavit, which is quo warranto, mandamus, restitutio, and then the Constitution, the fiduciary documents, the charter, and a letter from the custodian previously in the office of president of the airline, and then something from the Treasury and something from the Federal Reserve with regard to the payment system. And then I'm just going to plan a trip and just do notify, 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 and demonstrate, demonstrate, demonstrate.
We should be okay on a test run.
Yeah. I know that we can because corporations were doing that. Corporations did not, they didn't go up there with some green things and be like, oh, I need 30 tickets for travel this year. They didn't. They used quote unquote accounts. Well, we have accounts. Each more has endless accounts with sovereign security numbers, merchant cards. We have all of that. See, the merchant card with the account number and the routing number of the Treasury, that's an endless account right there. That's 100 million just for starters, based on one lien, not all the liens, but just one. And that one lien can be either the lien for the airline or the lien for the United States Corporation Company. And then the fiduciary document, and then I'm going to craft the CEO documents and all of that and demonstrate it and quote the bankruptcy laws and the things that we're talking about on these calls, because we can, it's due. And then depending on whatever the outcome is, I will go back, and if I have to go back and look and see, okay, what caused them to say no, if they say no. Because the only reason, again, they cannot tell us no unless we forgot to do something. And I've told Moors that, but some don't like to hear that. They will say, they will blame it on them and say they're lawless. No, we told them to occupy until we come. And that's where the term come correct comes from. We have to come correct. We must know the laws that we make and put out there. The Constitution talks about appropriations. Okay, so let's appropriate. Appropriation happens where there's agreement in the law, both the lawful part, the legal part, and then the money part. So what is that? That is the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, which is, again, we're the originals of all of that. And then whatever entity you're dealing with. And you have to show you have to show yourself, really, that you have the authority to get whatever it is and possess it. It's already ours. Everyone knows that. Not one bolt on an airplane could have been done without them reaching onto our estate and pulling some metal out of our estate somewhere. So they know that it's ours. We just have to know that we're the CEOs of all the airlines. We're the CEOs and CFOs. So we just provide documentation to that effect and put it on the public record and then notify. And then just see what happens in terms of, you know, the ancestors will tell us what we need to know about the demonstration. Whatever needs to come next, they'll tell us. They've been telling us thus far. If they hadn't, I wouldn't be sitting here. And that's the purpose of testing, Moors, is you will know that what you know is truth by the outcome of your demonstrations. I would not be sitting here, I'm telling you, if what we know was not true. But we know that it is. And that came through testing. That came from that came through a POW demonstration. And them not, you know, not holding me because they couldn't. Strictly based on principle of the law. So, listen, I'll tell you this. Look at the Bitcoin situation. Just take a look at that. Look at that situation. Look what they did. Look what has happened recently. They were just determined to make that a viable something that they were trying to have outside of the capitalism system of the debtors. That whole Bitcoin piece is a bunch of foreigners not wanting to be debtors. They're tired of a debtor system. So they invented, they didn't even invent it because it's not really a thing, it's virtual. They came up with a great marketing system for a spreadsheet that they created and called it a blockchain. And then they said, well, we are outside of what's happening in D.C. Well, you're not outside of what's happening in D.C. if you're taking fiat. Somebody got to pay some taxes to the fiat gods or whatever, and I can't even call them gods. But to the fiat, they're going to pay some taxes to Caesar. So, you know, that's another reason why we know that we're the real wealth. We know that. But that whole Bitcoin piece should tell everybody everything you need to know. And then not only did the Bitcoin thing supposedly, it was supposed to be outside of regulation, but then how is it that it's outside of regulation, but it done tumbled in the stock market? That's not outside regulation if somebody that didn't supposedly create it can bring that price down.
And they were talking about Biden did something about the Bitcoin. So what he got to do with it? It's supposed to be outside of government. So.
And Biden and he ain't even government. He, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy the claims that they make and the things that they do, and they're calling it money. But if they lose their computer, what then?
Because they signatures ain't gonna work.
No. It's not. It's not going to work. And they're doing that kind of stuff. And most of them, whenever they denominate how much they've made, they still turn right back around and denominate it in dollars and not in Bitcoin. When they're telling you how much these supposed guys are worth, they use the word dollars. They don't say he is worth 50 million in Bitcoin. They don't.
Islam Empress.
Islam.
I don't know if you've seen, I think I sent you Jeff Bezos. He had his yacht taken in Dutch waters, and they claimed it was because of the width of the yacht was not able to fit under a bridge, and the bridge that they were supposed to take down was a historical bridge, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, that's a nice way of saying it got repoed.
Yes.
They don't got nothing, and we, the Moors, is reclaiming. Oh, and then I think I did send you the article about how there was. Oh, hold on, I put it in Telegram. I think I know I did. About this mortgage company is being investigated. It says on December 7, 2020, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau filed a complaint and proceeded stipulation judgment and ordered against NationStar Mortgage LLC, which does business as Mr. Cooper NationStar. The Bureau alleges that NationStar violated multiple federal consumer financial laws, causing substantial harm to the borrowers whose mortgage loans it serviced, including distressing homeowners. NationStar is one of the nation's largest mortgage services and the largest non-banking mortgage service in the United States. The proposed judgment and order, which the court, lowercase c, mind you, this got all lowercase all up in it, which the court entered on December 8, 2020, requires NationStar to pay approximately $73 million in redress to more than 40,000 harmed borrowers. It also requires NationStar to pay $1.5 million in civil penalty to the Bureau, Attorney General, which general is in lowercase g, from all 50 states to the District of Columbia, and the bank regulators from 53 jurisdictions, lowercase j, covering 48 states and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia settled with NationStar the same day, and their settlements are reflected in separate actions concurrently filed in the United States District Court for the District of, it says for the District of Columbia. The Bureau in the, the orders in the Bureau in states' actions have yielded nearly $85 million in recoveries for consumers to date, and over $6 million more in fees and penalties. They are also part of a larger government effort, government lowercase g, y'all, lowercase g, government effort, which also includes assistance for Special Inspector General for Troubled Assets Relief Program and the United States Trustee Program to address NationStar alleged unlawful mortgage loan service practices. Interesting, eh?
The language sounds like
I'll put the link in the chat.
Let's look at this.
Yeah, because I say it got Moore's written all over it.
Yeah.
Saying we've been doing our work and our due diligence and our court actions and putting everything where it's supposed to be, and stating that, y'all are fraud and y'all don't have any say.
Yeah.
Gotta answer that.
So now they're just, Islam, Empress.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. We have liens against both of them, Mr. Cooper, NationStar, and they changed their name shortly after we had put in our lien against them. So thank you for that.
Islam.
Oh, Islam. I didn't know that, and I already declared that it was because of the Moors that did it. Islam.
Empress Rose says she did too. She had a lien out on them.
Islam, Fannie Mae was lien. Islam.
There it is. Listen, who is governing this land and these resources? Moors. Come on now.
Yeah.
Let's just get that straight. No one has, because see, debtors can't tell other debtors what to do, and that's the problem they were having. That's where all the infighting was coming from. Is when things like the SEC, let me put it this way. When the corp's SEC would start telling corporations, other corpses, what to do, those other corpses started turning back saying, you ain't nothing but a corporation either, so you don't tell us what to do. And that's why we have to stand, because all of that infighting and stuff like that is not even cool. It's not even cool. not even among the corpses. So we got to get that war off the land. That's just war energy. I have noticed more when we speak into something, there's always going to be movement in that, whatever it is, and it's going to move like we speak. I don't care what it is, and I can't say I don't care what it is. I'm going to use different language. No matter what it is, when we speak, there's going to be changes made. And we will see those changes being made. It's happening instantly. We speak, and then within 24 hours, some story pops up. There it is. Empress Rose says she made a fiduciary letter for Mr. Cooper Group. All right, CEO, Islam. Listen, we are who we are, and that's not going to change. So we might as well go ahead on and keep doing what we're doing.
Islam, yes, because I had another aha level of comprehension on what that AAA 22141 truth non-tax means, as far as we are not obligated to pay tax. And so when you understand, overstand, therefore understand what tax is a debt. Yeah. So essentially, we're not supposed to be paying any tax, which that means any bills, anything that they say that we're supposed to pay, that's a tax.
Well, you know, Empress, we just have to look at who it is that's speaking. Who's speaking? Mm-hmm. And what is their medium of exchange? And what is their status? And what are they claiming that they're going to take if you don't pay? What are they claiming? What is all of that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we start with the court action. Who are you, first and foremost? Quo warranto. Who are you?
And what are you?
And see, our court just speaks right off the bat. See, we start off, even who are you starts with court action language. Period. Who's speaking, and what medium of exchange are you using? Because see, if you're using fiat, we got a problem. But see, we can't say that if we keep using that stuff too. And back to what Justice Gregory was saying, what are my thoughts on that, and being one of the only ones that he knows that's not taking fiat for the stuff. We can't tell them to stop using fiat if we still using it. Now, we're in transition on this land. So we're not bashing anyone who's using whatever they want to use, because you can't tell sovereigns what to do, no way. And we don't even try. Plus, we love all sovereigns, no matter, we love everyone. And so everyone can do whatever they want to do on the land, but we're accountable for ourselves and what we do. And we know that we see results better when we do it the way we are supposed to do it. We get better results with our demonstrations when we're doing it according to the law and observing and honoring our foremothers and forefathers. That fiat ain't been on this land not even 150 years, to be honest with you. Not even 150. Maybe a little more than that. Maybe. What is 1792? And 1792 was the Coinage Act, and that was saying use gold coins. So then we're now going on. Between 1871 and 1913, what happened? Because see, that's where that transition took place, where the United States Corporation Company declared that, okay, we're going to be full-scale corpse zombies walking around on the land. you know, or in this corporate fiction, because they can't even be on the land. They've been in a corporate fiction. That's 1871. What happened between 1871 and 1913 to the point where they felt comfortable enough to do a Federal Reserve back at Jekyll Island? And then 1933, because see, that's a long time between declaring that you're a dead corpse and starting to print and people actually using fiat. Because in 1933 is when they started printing fiat. What happened between 1871 and 1933? What happened? That's a long time. It was a lot of paperwork that flew around. A lot of paperwork.
Empress.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I saw?
Islam.
Was that they had to gain control of the corporation.
Yes.
When they told the corporation what to do, when somebody came in and patronized it, then the corporation would say, we can't accept it, because of the law,
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to get just people to stop using coins or whatever was lawful. So they had to control the corporations, and the corporations had to say, hey, we'll lose our whatever,
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel.
Empress, that is so how that happened. That is absolutely how that happened. And they changed the paperwork. They started issuing paper, and people were still thinking that the paper was coming from the Moors. We're just reversing that now. They're thinking that these documents are coming from fraudulent fake Pfizer, when in reality it's coming from the real Pfizer and the real Moderna and the real Mercedes-Benz and the real American Airlines and on, and the real Treasury and the real president. That's all we did was just put the capitalism where it belongs. That's it. I wanted to show you all something. There was a speech that Ronald Reagan did. Okay, where he said some things in that speech. That's the speech that made them say, you know what? And we talked about this, I believe, on our last call. But these are some of the quotes from his speech. The speech was called A Time of Choosing. He did it in 1964. And it says here, one of the quotes from the speech, it says, whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. All he was saying is either we self-govern or we yield our capital, all caps names, and claim their person and let them do whatever they want to do with us. And that's all they did between 1871 and 1933 is switch the capitalism so subtly that the Moors, because that was the time when we were starting to doze off, and next thing you know, we fast asleep, and they done switched the capitalism around, and
we was drooling by then.
Yeah, we were. And remember, that's when around 1913 is when they supposedly switched all the deeds from titles to deeds.
Oh my goodness.
And birth certificates and all of that. And again, that was just, that was some acting going on because they could never take our status. But that's all that was at the time is suppressing our documents and we not say anything, and then them issue their documents and tell everybody, yeah, this came from the government. And before you know it, your land that's been in your family for 1,000 years, all of a sudden you owe $5.50 in taxes. And
yeah, Islam, because it says confess that a little intellectual light, because that's, remember you had that pronunciation is supposed to be that way, and then it says in a far distant, because they were in so many ways stating the two different jurisdictions. Because and then it says capital, and that one is in lowercase, can plan our lives for us better than we could plan for ourselves. So they're sitting there having a discussion about whether we're going to continue to let them govern us because they were subjects, and they was like, well, how can we usurp their authority at this point and take the capital that they have and then make it into our own capital? That's what that's saying.
Yes. You know what? How about that, Empress? Capitalism. Let's say, for example, me, you, and Empress Shatali, we all sit down at a table and we all put Empress Shatali's sovereign-born appellation on a piece of paper, and we say, okay, Empress Shatali, this is what we say about you. Did you know that my piece of paper and Empress Angel's piece of paper is not valid for Empress Shatali unless she agrees to it? We cannot, that's why when we say all Moors, it's all Moors who assent to that, to the things that, to be a part of what we're doing. And Moors can cherry pick what we're doing and say, we want to be a part of that, but we don't want nothing to do with this. And we're like, Islam, we affirm. So how much more some foreign subjects, or some foreign corpses rather? Because our subjects are not even foreign. They're subjects. They're more subject of jure. So you already know that any paper that don't come from you ain't talking about you until you say it's talking about you. And then you properly rebut the paper that comes in the mailbox, because it can't even come directly to you. That's why a mailbox is there, because they can't give papers directly to the heirs. They are in a far distant corporation. We right here on the land. They're the ones that's far off. And that's why the prophet said they're going to have to take on a whole lot of water. And they're 3,000 miles from where they're supposed to be. Not us, we right here where we're supposed to be. We on the land. And the crazy thing about that is that a foreign corpse can appear to be in the same room with you, Moors, and be nowhere near you. They're in a different place altogether. They're in a different location altogether because they agree to be a corpse. And you are the heirs on the land. It's like a bunch of ghosts and zombies walking around on our land, trying to do things and rattling chains and slamming doors. And we get scared because we're like, there's something there. There's some presence there and it's haunting. No. Call that dead thing what it is and put it in the grave. So and that's the thing about our kin too, because I thought about that the other day. I took someone close to me to they needed assistance going to the doctor. And when I took them to go help them get to the doctor, you already know what happened. I go in, helping them in, and somebody tried to hand me a mask. And I said, I don't wear those. And you know, well, in order for you to be in here, you must have a mask on because of la 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 la. I'm not wearing a mask. Okay. This is the one who's here to see you. I'm not here to see you. That's the patient, not me. And well, we can't. Now, I could have pushed the issue and said whatever I wanted to say to them. Because had they called the policy enforcers wouldn't even came. They wouldn't even came. That's not a criminal matter nor a civil matter. It's a corporate matter. And I'm not a part of your corporation. I mean, I could have said a whole bunch of stuff. But I said, you know, just to ensure that the one that I was with gets the service that they are going to get. Now, we wasn't scared now. We wasn't, because we know they can't do nothing to us. But the one that I was assisting is still ascribed to that system, you know. And I wasn't going to leave them unassisted just because they still subscribe to the system. Okay, you subscribe to the system. But just know when you ask me to assist you that I'm going to demonstrate my status and nobody's going to make me do things that are against my religion. Nobody. And I'm not bending that for nobody. Because it ain't cute to bend and compromise, even for the ones you love. It's just not the way we do things, because if they can't use nothing else, they'll use the ones you love, because they already know ain't nothing else going to work. Guns don't work. Jail doesn't work. None of that works. So now you're going to have to take another route and use the ones that they care about. Okay, that doesn't work either. And so, you know, there's a number of things that I could have done, but I said, okay, here's what I will do. When you take this one that I came to assist back there, then I'll go. I'm going to go out because I wasn't going to wait in here anyway. I'm going to go out, and then I'm coming back in when they're ready to go. And when I came back in, they didn't say anything. They didn't try to push a mask or nothing. But I had to tell them what I was going to do and what I wasn't going to do. Because we're not in the same jurisdiction. Me and the one I came to assist were not in the same jurisdiction. And to me, that still sometimes kind of just is like, wow. You know, wow.
Islam Empress.
But you can't make people wake up. They have to wake up when they're ready. And then we don't check out on them just because they're not awake. We just have to be ourselves, and everybody else got to deal with us being ourselves. Because, see, we used to have to deal with them, but now, I'm going to be me. You got to deal with it, not me.
Islam.
Yeah, because, I'm sorry. We was at the library this past Tuesday and Wednesday, but the one in Harlem, no, Manhattan. Yes, Manhattan. They have this, and it's our ancient buildings, but they have these fictitious security guards that claim to need to check bags on its way in and on our way out. So this time around, I was like, I'm not taking this book bag off till I get to my location to where I'm supposed to be at. So I was like, open it. So my back open it. Man, we can't do that. I said, well, you say you have to check this bag. I'm giving you the permission to open it. Well, we can't do that. I must have stood there and said it like 3, 5 times. And he was like, go ahead, ma'am. And then the same way on the way out, I was like, open it. We can't do that. We can't do that. And so as I was leaving, I was like, well, duh, that part. You can't go in my bag, which means you need my consent for me to acquiesce my authority to open the bag to let you search and look in my bag. So because I said you open it, you refuse, you don't have the authority, which means I'm not going to give you the authority. Checkmate.
You know, that means that it wasn't about what was in the bag or not. It was about, do you consent?
Yeah.
It was about consent. You know, and then that's when letters about being the CEO and all of that come in. You know, they'll get that next week, next month. You know, and I could do that with the one that I was assisting. I could send them something saying, first of all, Pfizer and Moderna, you can get those documents first, and then you'll get documents, you know, stating that that stuff is not even real. I could do that. You know, there's any number of things that I could do.
These resignations work because, quote unquote, the CEO of the corporation still has COVID. And he's not going to not have COVID and house arrest because he never was running anything anyway. So that's that part. He still got it. Now he got the worst case down, too, in that part.
That's Masonic code for the Moors have resigned me. That's what that is. The Moors have resigned me. You know, so the ancestors are dealing with, and they're not dealing with it. They're just showing us how to use our authority without overdoing it. Because that's important. Because everything, you know, this stuff didn't change overnight. So all we have to do is just keep doing what we're doing. That whole COVID thing, I mean, it's only certain ones that are still ascribing to that. And I will say this about, and this is another reason I didn't say to them that I'm not going anywhere and I'm not wearing a mask, because I could have said that too. But the reason I didn't was because the one who was trying to get me to wear the mask looked so scared when she saw me come in without it. She just looked like, you know, to hand me a mask. And I'm like, okay, so that's her fear, and she got mental stuff going on. Should she even be working in public? That was my question. You probably should be getting some therapy somewhere, you know, so that you can know that people do walk around and breathe regular air. Because, see, COVID ain't no boogeyman for us. We already know that it's a crown virus, and we wear the crown. But, you know, some people, that programming really, 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 really did a number on them. I mean, and she was a modern European, all of them in there were modern Europeans. Just that particular one looked so scared. I almost felt like, poor dear, are you going to start crying or yelling or what? You know, she looked like she was ready to run out and, you know, out into the street pulling her hair out, talking about COVID's here. She's not wearing a mask, you know. It's just, and it's not funny, but I just think about the programming and how we have escaped, and it's not even escape. What's a good word, Morris? We never were programmed to be, you know, it's not like that. She just looks scared. And I'm like, that means your mask is not working.
So why are you wearing a mask? And if everyone has a mask on, why do I need to wear one? I don't.
Especially after they say Biden got the COVID. Now, he should have had top shelf type of vaccination. And he got it. So.
Well, they showed him on, acting out a vaccine, getting it put in and a booster.
Right. So he's supposed to be covered with the utmost, and where you got it, so the mask ain't nothing gonna work. I mean,
listen, they can go on somewhere with that and get these Moderna and Pfizer documents we got over here, because we'll hand them to you. Here you go. And then you can go hide in a cave if you feel uncomfortable with that, because we're not going anywhere. We're going to be on this land looking just like this.
Because she couldn't really believe that, Biden got the COVID. And that's probably why she's scared, like, dang, the top custodian got the COVID, I'm in trouble,
The top former custodian, but yeah. Listen, that was a whole job. That was a whole worldwide job. That was some psychological operations that's just cray-cray, if you ask me, on those who are susceptible to psychological operations, And we had our days where we were demonstrating and there was a little bit of fear going on. Speaking of which, but we overcame it. And we did then put a video on the public record. And when we saw that they didn't take down our video about masks are not mandatory on our land, when we saw that video was still up and it's still up today, we knew. And it did not have a COVID, a disclaimer under the bottom of it. We knew then that, okay, we got this. We got this. But let me say this, Morris. That whole fear piece, fear is it's a superpower when you know how to transmute it. Fear fear in a programmed environment is the most powerful energy available. Okay? Most persons spend their lives doing things out of fear. Okay? We don't, but many persons do. But when you think through fear and then transmute fear, and there's two ways you can do it. One way is by thinking about love. If you say, I'm feeling fear, but I'm going to change that fear to love, and then you neutralize it by thinking about how just say, I love everybody on earth. When you do that, fear is neutralized and it becomes docile. It's kind of like the secret treaty of Verona, Article 3. It becomes docile, and you have ameliorated your interest by making fear docile. But then there's another something that you can do with fear too when you feel it. When you feel fear, we, the natural people, have the ability, and I just know in my knower, when I did this demonstration, I was alone in my conveyance, in my daughter's conveyance. And I did this demonstration where I felt some fear, and it wasn't a whole lot of fear. It was a little bit after I had done a demonstration recently. And the ancestor said, okay, let us show you how it is that you all have the ability to do interstellar travel without a spaceship. That sounds crazy, but beam me up Scotty type stuff. If we change fear energy in our minds, if we think about fear energy as the energy that is needed to blast us off and to help us levitate or whatever, the energy is so powerful that it will manifest that way. We can actually, if our bodies are alkaline enough, and that's the key to all of this really, is alkaline bodies and clear spirits. You know, if we get, you know, when we and as we, not if, but as we and when we become more alkaline, we can think a certain way and use fear energy to make us, to move things around on the table and, you know, without touching it and all of that. It's very powerful. I changed the fear energy into a different form of energy that changes it into trajectory energy. Trajectory is kind of like something that pushes you forward in a specific direction. Projectory and trajectory. And the fear itself is the most basic form of our superpower energy. It is the most basic form. And when we get past the fear, and I believe that's what these demonstrations are about, is getting us past the fear, so that whenever we feel that energy, we can use it to change things without touching them. It's very powerful. And I think that's why fear has been the mechanism by which either we choose, in the past, we had chosen, you know, some chose to go ahead and demonstrate through the fear. I'm one of those that chose to demonstrate through the fear. I don't care how scared I was just going to demonstrate, and look, the ancestors was going to have to do something because I'm going to demonstrate, period. You know, and they did, you know, through us. And then others have chosen to let fear slow them down a little bit or whatever, you know, and we're not judging anybody for that. They need to demonstrate at the level of their overstanding. And fear is a sign, if you let fear stop you, it's a sign that you don't quite overstand some things yet. And that's okay. That's okay, because that's safe, you know. But when you demonstrate beyond the fear, it then becomes a very powerful adrenaline factor. That's why there was this show called Fear Factor. It is a factor like in an equation. And that equation, the outcome of the equation can be changed drastically when you know what to do with the fear. When you can think past the fear and then get creative with the fear energy. Get creative with the energy. Some people have been able to take fear and lift up a whole conveyance off of somebody because they were afraid that person was going to get, you know, we've heard stories like that in the news of people being able to run faster than they've ever run because they got scared. And, you know, next thing you know, they look around and they done jump over something that they never would have been able to jump over because they were scared, you know. So fear energy is the basis for the next dimension. So, you know, I just thought I would put that out there because at some point it's going to be important that we know that it's okay to be afraid, and then to just go ahead and continue past the fear. When I was doing the POW demonstration and I was doing court actions, sometimes I was doing the court actions shaking because there were so many of them at the door. But the ancestor said, just do it. Just do what we told you and we'll make sure you're all right. And they did. The people couldn't even come, the persons couldn't even come in the door. And they supposedly had the key. And they couldn't even come in. because our ancestors, that's when I knew that, okay, you all want me to know something about fear energy because you keep putting me in situations. And again, we call forth our own tests. When I speak to the ancestors, I know that we are our ancestors' return. But those situations kept coming up, and I just said, okay, I'm just going to do what you say. I'm just going to do it. And every time, without fail, they came through. Yeah.
Islam Empress, you know, you're right about that fear energy because I've had my own experience with fear energy, and the brother next to me felt my energy, and it was intense. And then after I got home to my domicile, I meditated on what was going on at the time when it was taking place, and I'm like, well, dear God, if I felt my energy rise in my fear, imagine if I took it and harnessed it and purposed that energy and then turned it to smite those who was trying to, you know, usurp my authority, you know. And I said that, and I was like, wow. And then, you know, when you look at like X-Men and all those different things, like that one girl for the new X-Men, like when she got afraid, she would like start things on fire. Or was that the other television show? Any so is these shows that are out there now to the point that when some of them get angry or mad or upset or afraid, like that's when it really gets out of control. But then whoever is like their sensei teaches them, now you see what happens when you're afraid. Now harness that and channel it and take that to your advantage and use that to be your resource, your guide. And you know, and you can do anything as long as you stay in control and harness it.
Yes, 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 indeed. Yes, indeed. That's powerful. Very powerful. Very powerful. I believe that that's what it's about. I really believe that that's a good deal of what this is about, but it's also about other things too. You know, we don't want to smite anybody. We don't want to smite anybody, but because we're not aiming our energies at people, because we're not mad at the faces that we see. You know, no matter what the face looks like, we're not mad at them, and they are not the object of our test. We are the object of our test. So, you know, when fear comes and we want to do something with it, just think superpower, something else. Think levitate, think manifest, think, you know, I tend to think the opposite of what I've been programmed to think. If my first inclination, and it's not even my first inclination anymore because I practice it so often, but when I got scared, when I felt the fear, because I can't even say got scared anymore, that doesn't even sound right. When I felt the fear, first of all, I knew that it was programming because it was outside of me. It wasn't fear that I felt in here. My brain was thinking fear, but I didn't feel fear in my heart. And so I knew then that, okay, this must be something that I can do something with, because I already know the ancestors give us things so we can do something with it, you know, and make something of it and be productive with it. And we only know how productive we are when we're placed in an uncomfortable situation. And uncomfortable doesn't have to be bad. That's the thing. It does not have to be bad. It doesn't have to be jail. It doesn't have to be that. Uncomfortable can be in a good way too. I'm looking forward to some of that. You know.
Islam, right? It's uncomfortably hot outside. Bring it on, honey.
Yeah. All these zeros in this account are really uncomfortable. I need to figure out how to deal with them. Right.
I got an uncomfortable amount of space in my domicile because it's like overwhelming.
That kind of uncomfortable is good. So yeah, we are doing the, by the way, the gathering October 28th, 29th, and 30th, whatever the last weekend is of October. I believe it's the 28th, 29th, and 30th. I would love for us to talk about that and see how we want to do it. I think we should just take that weekend to demonstrate the travel. And I know that's probably, you know, I think we should demonstrate travel and hotel. I think we should set our minds and hearts and spirits and souls and sights on demonstrating hotel and travel, airline travel for that weekend to see how it turns out, how it goes. And I'm going to just do them along the way until that time period, you know. And we'll decide on a hotel, and it can be one right here, right around here. And then everybody start demonstrating their status with regard to it, and send the documentation first before before we make any phone calls or anything like that. Just send the documentation, send notification first. And we'll notify from here definitely, because we're going to be doing the same demonstrations. I think we should demonstrate together like that, you know, coming up, so that we can access and discuss how it turns out. The travel and the hotel seems to be the thing that we need to access, you know, the travel and the hotel. So for that weekend of the end of October, we can start now by getting our documentation together and notifying and notifying and notifying. And if we all target the same targets, basically, the same subjects and, you know, custodians formerly in the office of, I know that we can accomplish quite a bit when we decide to do it together. Are you all okay with that?
Islam, that will be an extreme concentration of energy, and then watch the explosion.
Yeah. We know they have to do it as commanded. Islam nobility.
I would also say to let the TSA know, or you know, those people who are at the occupying the TSA offices to know as well. And I mean, it really, I mean, and as well as the airports and stuff like that too. Because I mean, we're going to need to do a roll call anyway, since we are doing this to put the 50 constitutions on the public record, just to know how many Moors from what territories out of the 50 we got coming, if that makes sense, and to put the. Yeah.
And this will also be a part of the bankruptcy proceedings as well, because that's really what we are using, along with the supreme law of the land, to demonstrate the travel and, you know, the and the hotel stay. And we would be using merchant cards to, but see, our documents have to be sent first, so that the rooms are held with the merchant cards, you know. So, and again, we just have to fix, you know, we have to walk through the demonstration. That's the only way I know to do it, is go ahead and just walk through it together. It needs to be done. We know that. But one thing I do know is that we're putting this on the public record. The ancestors are going to show us how to do it. They're going to show us how to do it. And we know how to do it. We got to make sure that our documentation is on the public record, and that we notify, and then ensure that the system reflects what we have stated that it reflects. You know. so that we can start coming together, because we need to come together. We need to come together. So with that being said, over the next few meetings, we will, in the next meeting, why don't we just lay out the documents that we need in order to manifest that. Things that need to be done. So if you want to make a list of the documents that you would use that we have placed on the public record, or it could be ones that we have not placed on the public record just yet based on our study of liquidation and bankruptcy and all of that. We didn't get to the other part of the bankruptcy, but that's okay. We'll get to it in our next meeting, which is the liquidation portion, collection and liquidation of the estate. I wanted to point out something. You know what? I'll just point it out really quickly. Remember when I told you that I sent all of those documents, such as I sent the the birth certificate, the Social Security card, the passport. I sent all of that stuff to the constitutionally inferior court as proof of claim of the fraud and that I'm the creditor for this bank, in preparation for this bankruptcy proceedings, these bankruptcy proceedings, because I wanted to have something to show you all that we, that we have done. Let me pull that document up really quickly, and we can just take a quick look at it. Let's see. Because I wanted to show you where liquidation is concerned, what was done and what we received back from that is indeed liquidation. Let's see. Here it is. So really quickly, liquidation has begun. But let me show you this just really quickly. This is part 6 of the Federal Rules of Bankruptcy Procedure. Here it says Rule 6002, accounting by prior custodian of property of the estate. Accounting required. Any custodian required by the code to deliver property in the custodian's possession or control to the trustee shall promptly file and transmit to the United States trustee a report and account with respect to the property of the estate and the administration thereof. Examination of the administration on the filing and transmittal of the report and account required by subdivision A of this rule, and after an examination has been made into the superseded administration. After notice and a hearing, the court will determine the propriety of the administration, including the reasonableness of all disbursements. So this report and account is what this is. This is a report and account. So what was sent back was an inventory of the envelope that was sent. It says original certificate of birth, original Social Security card, original Alabama driver's license, original passport, original Department of Veterans Affairs cards, original Armed Forces of the United States card, original, all of that was, we were rendering unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and it was inventory, and then they sent it back to the mailing location. That is a report and account with respect to the property of the estate. So now those documents cannot be, it cannot be stated that those documents are their person, because that's not their person. Their person was turned in. and given. Their person was rendered to them. Okay? And then they said, okay, well, we're going to inventory and send everything back. So all they did was 6002, accounting by prior custodian of property of the estate. So that's what that is. Because they even used our paper to print that stuff and all that, but they can't claim it. They cannot claim that I have any contracts with them. All contracts were terminated. And they don't have any disbursements to give. So that's another reason why it came back. Because they say here, this court does not accept receipt of the envelope. It says the court did not receive copies of Exhibits G and H6, which means that they did receive copies of everything else. Which, by the way, G and H6 is that's not true. They did receive them. So we have to rebut that. But we have to decide how we want to do that so that we don't contract with them and so that we don't acknowledge anything that's not truth. It says the court does not accept receipt of the envelope or its contents, and it is being returned to you. This you is their you, not me. Okay. So Morris, they don't, they know they can't even do anything with all of those documents, But those documents are not. Remember now, if you don't pay fiat, they try and take that stuff, passports and all of that. They try and take that stuff if you don't pay certain fees and things that they want you to pay, if you ascribe to that system. But when you no longer ascribe to that system, they're not going to try and take that stuff again. You can give it to them and they will not take it. Driver's license included. Okay, so that was the point of that demonstration is to show that we don't need the stuff. But people are doing everything they can to try and keep that stuff. And we're saying, no, that's not me. That, and they sent it back. That should tell everybody who is afraid about a passport being taken and all of that stuff that they don't really care about that there's something more at play here. There's something else going on. So with that being said, just more to think about and to demonstrate and to look into and to affirm and all of that based on what we know.
Yeah, because when I returned my driver's license, I filled out the form. I didn't do it the conscious way, not fully, but I knew to turn it in. So I filled out the form and went up to the desk, and he was trying to talk me out of it. He was like, normally, people fill out these forms when, and for their loved ones who are elderly and can't drive no more. And, they would do that then. But, but you should, what if this and what if that? I was like, I got it. I got it covered. I'm good,
Yeah.
And so, he just shrugged, but he was trying to talk me out of turning in my driver's license. Yeah. So yeah, got to be something more to it because I had to fight.
Yeah. But you mess around and them say, oh, we're suspending your driver's license, and people go to jumping through hoops and spending all types of fiat and turning around in circles and dancing on one foot and doing all types of craziness. That's not what it's about. It's not about the instrument. It's about, are you going to keep giving them authority over you with that stuff on your vast estate.
Yep. And didn't want me to be aware that I had the right to do it.
All of that. All of that. No, they want to take it. You can't give it to them.
Right. Right.
So no. Mm-mm. Those are just some of the demonstrations that we do, Morris, and then we find out the real deal. We find out the real deal when we do that kind of stuff. Because I remember a time when they were saying they were going to, when this was decades ago when I was asleep, and I had gotten a DUI. And they were saying, we're going to suspend your driver's license and you have to take all these classes to get it back. And each class is 150, la, 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 la. And you have to take 60 classes. And it was just crazy. It was crazy. I was like.
Islam Empress. Because it's like my old job, my old agency I used to work there for. They would be like, if you took a permanent case because it was per diem, they said you have to give 2 weeks notice if you wanted to get off the case. But if the client, for whatever reason, didn't want you anymore, you're out of there instantaneously. And I'm like, but if I don't want to be there anymore, I got to put 2 weeks in and hope that you find someone else to cover it. But if they tell me I'm out, and they don't care if they got coverage or not, the nonsense. And that's the same thing with the license and the nonsense. If you get rid of it, that's a problem. But if they tell you you can't use it and they have, you know, it's whatever they say.
Then people go jumping through them hoops and I mean, by the time they done yanked, you know, 15,000 Federal Reserve debt notes out of you and holding stuff over your head for 5 and 10 years. It's crazy. It's crazy. But I know the ancestors did all of that. They took me through all of that stuff that I went through to get me to this point where ain't no looking back. Ain't no looking back. Take that stuff. You can have it. You have your person. That person wasn't me, no way, never. Here they go. I'm looking in my mailbox. And all that stuff is sitting back in there. I'm like, I thought I got rid of you. And I mean, everything was back. Except those 2 items that they lied and said wasn't in there. They were in there. And we putting that on the public record. They were in there. You took your person back. Because that person never was me. It never was me. So whenever policy enforcers were trying to arrest someone, they were trying to arrest their person, not me. More, we got to know that. If it's on their paper, they are not talking to you. That's why you must put your own paper out there. See, some didn't think that all of these documentations that we do was necessary. But now we see that you can't even claim, you can't even put in proof of claim unless it's written for it to be valid. But they'll go fill out a form and sign it in a minute and wonder why policy enforcers are. Just don't do it. That's our suggestion. Don't do it. Use your documentation, please, because anyway, with that being said, we will adjourn here and then we'll pick back up on Sunday. Morris, hopefully everyone has at least placed their nationality on the public record. Most of the Moors on these calls are a lot further along than that. So we're going to prepare to do that travel demonstration as a liquidation demonstration where the bankruptcy is concerned. And then please be thinking about what documentation we're going to be notifying with so that we can make a list and everyone get that list of documents, notifications sent out to whatever airline, and then look at the airlines and whatever schedule is out there. We want to write that schedule down ourselves, so we have to produce and generate in our state whatever it is we see out there. Okay, so that's what we'll do, and then let's discuss it on our next call, as well as continuing, and that's part and parcel of the bankruptcy proceeding. Is the use of the assets on our land. So,
as above, so below.
Yes, Islam. And with that being said, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Islam.
Islam. Peace and grand rising.
Peace, grand rising.
Islam. Peace and grand rising.
Peace
and
grand rising.
Islam.
Islam. Peace and energy. Peace and energy.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Islam. Peace and love.
Islam.
Islam.
Grand rising. Peace and love.
Rising. Peace and love, nobility.
Islam. Peace and love.
Islam.
Peace and love, Empress.
Islam. Grand rising, Empress.